Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the Next Gen Racing at GT3 Championship for 2021. Tonight marks round 5 of the 8 round calendar, and indeed we have got some intense racing tonight planned as we go into the second half as what have been a thrilling season so far. Our schedule for tonight, as always, is at 25 minutes past the hour, so in 10 minutes, or in 15 minutes time I should say, British Summer Time or UTC +1 will be getting underway with the driver's briefing. Qualifying will commence 5 minutes after that, so at half past the hour, 7:30 our time, and then at 7:45 we'll get underway with the 75-minute feature race with that all-important strategic aspect and the battling around the circuit. Followed after that, we'll have our post-race podium interviews with the podium finishers, and in the commentary box, as always, you've got myself, Paul TX141 Walsh, also known as Britain a Spit, depending on what media you follow me on. However, do keep in mind that this league would not be possible without the individuals that we work in collaboration with, and we've got a brilliant team both at Next Gen but also at the SimGrid and Coach Dave Academy who are supporting us all the way through the series and are our principal partners for running this championship. A word with regards to the SimGrid. The SimGrid is a place for amateur and professional sim racers to compete against fellow drivers in leagues and endurance events for a set of course of competition, and we're grateful to have them as part of our stewarding team and indeed supporting us in setting things up from the outset and working with us to ensure that everything runs as smoothly as possible. At the other end with Coach Dave Academy, Coach Dave Academy is the home of amateur and professional sim racers looking to up their game through coaching, setups and track maps, and you can be sure a good number of our drivers are using those setups and track maps to help them out here, particularly to get themselves into the swing of things, and they're using that information throughout their sim racing careers on a set of course of competition to push even further. We say hello to all of you tuning in, whether it's via the official YouTube channel of Next Gen Racing, the official Facebook page of Next Gen Racing, or 30 on Twitch and my personal Twitch for TX141. And we say hello to Lerv, Zeronic and Governor ITR in the chat. And do feel free to say hi, don't be shy, let me know what you're looking forward to most tonight, indeed who you're going to be cheering on as we see you guys in the chat, and we're going to be getting underway with some good quality racing very soon. Now let's take a look at those championship standings going into round number 5, going into that second half of course. We can see still at the top with a good number of points to hand, 48 points to hand, is Jez Field leading at the moment, the Swiss driver in the Porsche 911 GT3 of course, having had that very strong performance so far over the course of the season, wasn't able to make it a win last time out at Snetterton with a very dramatic battle all the way to the end between Field, also Voss and Delcom, but in the end it resulted in what was a collision, and we saw that in the end it was Voss who ran away with the win, the 4th attempt, and he was able to pull it off. Atkinson coming home in a good result once again, and currently second place in our championship standings on 224 points. The number 21 driver in the Bentley doing a very good job, and a major recovery effort from Atkinson. For those who missed it at Snetterton, Atkinson started off very well, only to be involved in an incident on the opening lap and had to make the mother of all recovery drives to get himself well back into the top 10, but he did it, and that's why he's in P2 in the championship standings as it currently stands. And then in P3 of course we have Brett Krewkamp doing a very good job in the Bentley as well, the South African driver, very pleased with his result at Snetterton and looking to carry that momentum forward, as is his fellow countryman Ross Bartle in P4, and you can see Krewkamp and Bartle both grumpy monkey drivers. Whilst they're racing as individuals here, we do not have a team championship. You can be sure that the team momentum is on their side and they'll be pushing one another forward. A point only separates the two of them, and they're both nipping on the heels of Atkinson in rapid order. And we can see that in P6 we have Voss with his final achievement of picking up that win in race number 4. It was on the 4th time of trying. Voss has been the dominant driver in qualifying, has Mathis, but he finally picked up the win on the 4th attempt, and he was very, very pleased on 191 points and making his way well up the standings. But as we look further down the order, we can see a P11 through to P20. We've now got the arrival of Adrian Leusinger in P14, the BMW M6 being one of the cars which many did not consider picking for the purposes of this championship, given the fact it is a bit of a chalk and cheese car. It's got a lot of straight line performance, but it lacks it in the corners. But Leusinger able to pick up a brilliant result last time out at Snetterton, just shy of the top 10, and indeed 132 points to his name. He's up into that P14 slot. We could also see there we've got Chris Zuger down in P18. It's been a difficult couple of rounds recently for Zuger, but he'll be trying to get himself back up into the standings, I'm sure, from those 116 points as we go deeper into the season. Now, into that second half where really the championship battles and the inter-battles between drivers really start to take a step up, and that's when drivers start to look around them and notice who they're battling with rather than trying to keep their eyes right on the highest possible prize. They start to have that reality of what they're competing for here, whether they're competing for a top 10 in the end or a top 20, that's what they now begin to focus on. As we also say hello to Shadow Stalker DBS in the Twitch chat. Good evening to you, sir. Hope you're doing well. Meanwhile, from P21 to P30, we can see there again a change up in the order, and we can see Kellgren in particular down in P26 as it currently stands. Joachim having a difficult set of races recently, and particularly having some difficulty. What was back at Zandvoort, really difficult event in round number 2, but it's the case he's now got to look to bounce back as the number 294 driver on 101 points and find his way back into the top 20. We go down to our P31 to P40 drivers here, and we can see a couple of retirements from the series there due to personal circumstances, and wish those drivers well. But we do have also there Julian Lardier in P31 on those 87 points, and he would love to add to his tally should he be able to make tonight's race. We also should keep in mind that a number of drivers have not been able to make all 4 races so far, so that's why we've got some drivers who haven't really progressed their points over the last couple of rounds, and we can see Dave Jr. in P35 there on 74 points, and we know Jr. is definitely at the circuit today in the Mercedes AMG and looking to pick up some good points. And then the last of our runners here, P41 through to P51. A lot of our retirees from the series there, but we can see we do have some drivers as well who would love to get some more points on the board. Lambrecht in particular, Preston Lambrecht, who was at Snetterton last time out, finished towards the back, a very difficult race for the Mercedes driver in P41, but he will be trying to turn that around and pick up some more points tonight. Now, where are we, of course, tonight? That's the big question. Well, we have gone back to Italy. We are at the Misano World Circuit, Marco Simoncelli, and the circuit dedicated, of course, to Marco Simoncelli, the motorcycle driver local to the region, who unfortunately passed away in 2012, if I remember my history correctly, due to a racing incident in motorcycling. However, we can see that we are in the Misano Adriatico region in the province of Rimini and Emilia-Romagna, Italy, and we have 16 corners available, and it looks a bit of an odd circuit, and that is because this is a very tricky circuit. There are a lot of very aggressive apexes here, and this circuit is dubbed by some drivers to be the home of trail braking. You are going to see very shortly what we mean by that. A lot of corners here where we have multiple apexes that flow into one another, and the most notable ones are being the run from turn 3 through to 4 and 5, where essentially you've got that pair of apexes at 4 and 5, and also the run from turn 10 all the way up to turn 14. An absolutely lovely sequence of corners where you go up to the top speed of the car, only to find then you have to trail brake from turn 12 all the way round to 14 into a very aggressive hairpin known as Carreau. As for the rules tonight, it is the same rule set as we've been applying so far, and in the race there will be that mandatory pit stop which will require a tyre change and fuel to be taken on board, 1 litre minimum, inside a 10-minute pit window that splits the 75-minute race in 2. So we will see that halfway point and our drivers will dive into the pits, but whether they undercut or overcut one another, that is the big question for all of our drivers. Now, we still do have just over 5 minutes before we get underway with our driver briefing, so we're going to head to the circuit and we're going to introduce some of our drivers who are currently getting in their final practice laps. And as we can see here, we've got Monrose making their way around the circuit right now. Here's Jesse Monrose from BSP Racing in the Bentley there, coming around the circuit right now, coming out to turns 4 and 5 and through 6 there, the left-hander. And indeed, Monrose having had a difficult set of races, but still looking rather consistent over the course of the season so far. But going into this second half, it's going to be a case that now the results really do matter in terms of finalising that position in the championship. However, at the other end of the field, of course, in this final practice session, we can see our fastest driver so far, and the driver who has everything to play for our championship leader by a sizable margin, the Swiss of Jesfield, who would love to continue that momentum tonight and continue to expand that gap. But he's got a lot of drivers who would love to nip at his heels. As we said earlier, Atkinson, the closest man at the moment in P2 in the championship from OTL Racing in the Bentley here, currently putting in those final practice laps here, making his way out of turn 6 and heading in the long run down towards 7. Well, the short run actually relatively so. In fact, I've got my camera angles completely wrong there. That's not turn number 6, that's 15 through 16, and he crosses the timing line to go once again. Charging all the way down now towards turn number 1 here. That's sweeping that right-hander into the left-hander of turn 2, and then flying back to a right-hander for turn 3. However, some other drives to consider here, as we are just waiting to check in with race control with regards to the setup of the cars and whatnot. And I've just had it clarified in my ear, folks, that Simoncelli actually passed away in 2011 at the Malaysian Grand Prix, and that was at Sepang on the 23rd of October 2011, after being run over following his own fall on a circuit. A very grim day in motorsport, of course, and thank you to the historians for clarifying that in my ear at the moment. We always want to get our historical facts correct, and it just goes to show you nobody's infallible with regards to getting things right. But indeed, motorsport, it's a reminder there of just how dangerous motorsport can be, but at the same time, we race on in the memory of those that we've lost over the years of motorsport, and this circuit dedicated to a local hero, and we carry on racing around here. We look a little bit further down the order and we can see we've got Niels Jun right now making his way around 17th in this final practice session. The Dutchman making his way through the turn number 15 and heading up towards 16. The Mercedes AMG machine there, and having a very good time so far. 1.5 seconds down on the fastest lap as set by field. But of course, in this final practice session, some drivers will be running qualifying setups, some drivers will be running race pace test setups, and we can't really get truly an indication. We can get an idea of where drivers may be place compared to one another, but we can't get that true indication of who is potentially going to be on pole. And indeed, when it comes down to that battle for pole, it is normally this man who's parked in the pits right now, Mathis Voss, the Frenchman from Intruder Racing Team, who is the guy to beat to pole. And he has made it 4 out of 4 pole positions so far this season. Can he make it 5 out of 5? Because if he could, it's going to be, I think, an important step to get on pole. Now, why do I say that? Well, the difference is here, in the previous 4 races, we seem to have had a trend where the Porsche 911 is a very strong car at the circuit, if not the fastest car at the circuit in some of the combinations. We saw last time out at Snetterton how the Porsches dominated qualifying to an extent, only to fall away in the race due to their battling, and the instance, particularly the top 3 were all Porsches until the very end when we had that major collision between our P2 and P3 driver. However, here it's the case that we are looking at a change in form, and it's the potential prospect that we could be seeing a little bit more from the Ferraris, for example, such as of Ethan Faulkner, the Irishman there, making his way around right now. And we popping into the pit shortly as he comes through 15 and down towards 16. And I do believe it will be one of those situations where it's not just the Ferraris, but also the Mercedes and the Aston Martin who will have a little bit of an edge here, because we do have that trade up here where we've got those medium to high speed corners, but we've also got a lot of corners where our drivers will want that stability, particularly when they have to really attack the apexes of each corner, and they will need that stability to carry the momentum through. And having a mid-engine rear-wheel drive car here, whilst it's going to give you that extra rotation, may lead to you having a bit more of an unstable platform, but of course our drivers can tune in for stability where they need to. So it's all to play for here, but the favourites are definitely not the Porsches today from what I'm hearing down at the paddock, but the Porsche drivers will give it their all, as we see Faulkner making his way right now down towards turn number 7 into that left hander, and effectively what is one of the lower speed corners here, a hairpin through 7, and then he'll be heading around to 8. The distinct GG driver there just carrying the momentum around. As we look a little bit further around the order, we can see we've got Delcom, Romain Delcom, of course, the Belgian driver, currently P20 in our practice standings here from Valkyrie Esport. A number of the Valkyrie Esport drivers here as well, and we do currently have in the paddock 29 drivers tonight. Now, you may be wondering, we started off the season with 50 drivers. Why are we coming down to such low numbers? Well, do keep in mind that our drivers are allowed to withdraw from a limited number of races. I believe it's 3 out of the 8 races they're allowed to withdraw from, otherwise they'll be disqualified from the championship, or they'll be asked to withdraw completely effectively because of partial participation. But it is the case that our drivers are allowed not to attend every single race if they provide a prior warning to our organisers. And what that means is we are seeing today some drivers not wanting to take part in the circuit. Perhaps they do not like Misano, or feel that Misano is not the circuit for them to gain great points, and they're reserving their energy for later on in the season. And we saw that at Snetterton last time out, where we saw quite a reduced field of drivers in the end, just shy of 30 drivers at Snetterton, and it was the case that we saw some drivers who would normally be a lot further back able to pick up some critical points at Snetterton in order to keep their championship aspirations alive. And that is the big thing. You take the points where they're available and take them off the table, and make sure nobody else can take them, as we're due to get underway with the drivers briefing very soon. And I suspect we'll have a number of drivers start to hop back to the pits in short order. As we can see here, we've got the Portuguese Helder Moreira in the M2 competition team Aston Martin as he makes his way through turn 15 here. He's got the Porsche ahead of him, of course, and will be tucking walking into the pit very shortly. I do assume he won't be going in this time, so he will go around one more time and then he'll be asked to come into the pits for that driver's briefing. Nobody allowed to be out on track, of course, when we have the driver's briefing, and we are just waiting for that countdown very shortly, folks, as we take a look over to the pit lane right now, and we can see Faulkner currently parked up, a good number of our drivers parked up, and everybody just waiting to have that word in their ear as we head over to the driver's briefing then, and we're going to listen in. And today's driver's briefing will be brought to you by the Next Gen Racing ACC GT3 organiser of Kevin Smith. He's back after a brief hiatus. And any moment now, and I'll of course read out any questions that our drivers submit, given the fact that you cannot see on the screen what's being managed in terms of the Discord that's being used in order to communicate the driver's briefing. But any moment now, we should hear the lovely tones of Kevin Smith. As we do say hello to Swizzy in the YouTube chat.
Good evening everyone and welcome back to Next Gen Racing for round 5 at Misano. I'm sure all of you should know the standard procedures now, and would just like to point out on the start of the race, please be extra cautious and careful in around the first sector in particular. We all know how tight that is, and trying to go 2-3 cars wide is definitely not advisable. And of course, stricter penalties will remain in place for those incidents and throughout the race. Due to an increase of driver standards over the last few weeks, which we have noticed, during qualifying, we would urge all of you to try and spread out and allow a bit extra room on track, just so you can get your flying laps in without any issues. And we do appear to have a slightly smaller grid this week than normal, so you should definitely have plenty of room on track. And yeah, I think that's about it, guys. Unless any of you have any questions, we would also like to let you know that Next Gen's GT3 European Series will be returning once this one has ended, and sign-ups will go live on Friday, so keep an eye out for that link if you're interested in joining us again. We will be looking to have live streaming and stewarding as long as availability is there. So good luck tonight, have fun, and keep it nice and clean.
We did briefly there have the advertisement for the follow-on series following the GT3 Championship here, with regards to another GT3 Championship that will be run by Next Gen later in the year. We did have one question come up in relation to that, but not in relation to the race tonight, so we're not raising that as part of the driver's briefing. That will be answered after the racing via private channels. But without further ado, as I'm just about to sneeze, hey for catching up with me, we're going to head back to the circuit. If you give me 2 seconds, ladies and gentlemen, to get this sneeze out of the way, and our drivers will be out on track for qualifying in just under 2 minutes. Sorry about that, folks. Didn't want to absolutely deafen everybody with sneezing in their ears. But we do have Swizzy in the YouTube chat supporting the ITR drivers, and in particular here we can see that he'll be supporting on drivers such as we take a look around the circuit. And we just take 2 seconds. So such as Voss, for example, of course a proud ITR driver, or the Intruder Racing Team in full. And we've also got Kevin Harikonen, the P2 man, in terms of the practice times right now, missing out on pole in the final practice session by only 1.5 attempts. Indeed, the practice times are not the best of indicators in terms of what we can expect in qualifying, because everybody will be using the final practice session as a means to determine whether they've got qualifying pace or race pace. We don't force our drivers to practice qualifying in that final practice session. They use it for whatever means, so long as they do not trip over or impede one another. It's effectively the equivalent, you could say, of, say, the practice sessions in Formula 1 on the Friday when we don't have sprint races. Without further ado, any second now, we will get the advancement to qualifying, and then we will be go. And there it is, folks. So we will be right back with qualifying. Alrighty then, ladies and gentlemen, 15 minutes. Who is going to be on pole by the end of it? That is the big question. And speaking of Kimi Räikkönen, when I asked drivers for their initial thoughts going into the second half of the season, and indeed tonight's round, a lot of them were quite quiet, focusing, I think, more so on getting their second half of the season underway. But the one driver who did pip his hand up very quickly was Kevin, and what he feels personally that so far the season has been an interesting one in the fact that in the championship he's had 2 poor races, 1 decent race and 1 really good race, and he wants to improve on this through further training and also perhaps getting a top 5 finish in the championship if he can improve his form and keep up that momentum. And really, Räikkönen has seen his momentum go from strength to strength over the last couple of races, and he'll be looking to try and start off the second half of the season tonight. I suspect we're at least a top 10 finish. That will be his aim, and you can see him in the Ferrari there making his way into turn 7 right now and getting ready to go onto a flying lap. But at the front of our pack, making their way around right now, we can see that we do have a Grumpy Monkey machine, and I believe that is the Grumpy Monkey machine of Crew Camp here. So we are going to jump on board very shortly with Crew Camp as he's going to take us around for a lap, a flying lap of course. And without further ado then, let's get to it. As we jump forward then onto the dashboard here, you see we're going to the final corner, turn 16. He'll want to nail this absolutely perfectly to get the best possible run out the corner and then go on the attack for the opening flying lap of the session. It's a long run up towards turn number 1, and turn number 1, the sweeping right-hander here, braking at that 50 board, trailing in across the apex, and cuts as much the apex as possible before going back into a left-hander here, a slightly slower corner, a sweeper to the left, and then sweeping back to the right once again, attacking the apex of turn 3 as aggressively as possible before coming up into the double apex combo of 4 and 5. He brakes into the hairpin of 4, but you're going to see very quickly he's now got to try and stabilise the car, and then just gently balance the throttle through 5 before flicking back into left-hander of 6. That completes the first sequence of corners. Now he's got a short run down towards turn 7 here. In fact, longer than some of the other runs on the circuit, but not the longest run. Coming up into 7 then, another hairpin style corner, braking at about 80 metres there, and just having to trail it in and get the car rotated through the corner in the Bentley, of course. Quite a heavy car, but able to get it through, and now heading up towards turn number 8 here, going into the right-hand king, and then he's got turn number 9, another trail brake sequence, and now as he comes out 9, he needs to nail the launch here because it's a very long run up towards the final part of the circuit. So out 9 he comes, and now it's the long charge all the way down what is effectively a straight, but it's got kinks in it, going through 10 very shortly. Flat out through 10, and now he's heading up towards turn number 11 here, into the right hand of 11, and then coming up into 12. Now he's got to start the trail brake, and you could see that the rear end just getting a little squirrely under the trail brake initially, into 13, and very gently through 14. He's now got 2 corners to go here. The left-hander of 15 awaits him first. He goes through there, full attack, full beans, and then he comes in to 16. The final corner, braking down approximately 60 metres for the corner, and that is the first flying lap set by Crew Camp. And what's it going to be from the South African driver? It is going to be a 34.9. What can our drivers do to match him here? We see Field coming across the line just behind him here, and we can see Junior as well, 34.7. And Field, will he set the bar high? No, he does not. And Zuga sets an identical time to Field as they both make their way in towards turn 1. We see more times coming in here as we've got Atkinson right now making his way across towards what is, I believe, there turn number 4. And in fact, Atkinson now on his first flying lap here, deciding to come out of the pits last, or at least one of the last drivers, as we do have going around the circuit right now, grand total of 29 drivers here participating in the qualifying session. So that is our locked in group of 29 out of the approximately 43 remaining participants in this championship. As we see Atkinson again a little squirrely under braking there into turn 7, things not working out for Atkinson, and he's going to have to probably go again to get an indicative lap. But right now, provisional pole going to Dave Jr., the American driver, of course, who's had a very difficult season so far, but he looks as though Jr. has improved considerably going into the second half, or at least it is qualified so far, and he is being matched right now by Mathis Voss. The two drivers on identical times of 34.758 as they make their way around the circuit and continue the flying laps. But the big question will be, of course, which one of them has got the greater potential to improve over the course of the qualifying lap, as we do check in with you guys in the chat. And we can see that we've got Mancart there also supporting on the YouTube channel ITL. We've got a lot of fans of Intruder Racing, as we see Ben Walker taking provisional pole at 34.6. He's 1/10 faster than Junior and Voss right now, and it's the McLaren making its way around the circuit here. And indeed, Walker, the British driver, we know just how much strong results mean to Walker. He had a difficult time at Snetterton, he was on good form, and Atkinson responds for going 3.5 tenths faster. And in fact, we got even more times coming in here. Junior improving massively, Field improving the most out of everybody, and Zuger as well getting himself up there into P2 right now. As we see Field, the Swiss, has set a 33.747, and Zuger then being the next fastest, another Swiss driver from CHF Motorsport, and we can see what is at the end of the day a 34.2. And then Voss has snuck in. We've got the Porsches lining up at the top 3 so far, so perhaps the prediction of Porsches not being as strong here may not be accurate, as we do have Porsches in 4 of the top 5 places right now. Liv Floik, of course, who's just dropped down to P6, with Harikonen getting in there into P5, as we can see on our time screens that things are changing quite rapidly, and we see Harikonen getting a bit of traffic. And another item regarding the Frenchman, what he was telling me with regards to tonight, he feels confident for a good result, and Misano is a track where he was saying that he feels the Porsches are not supposed to dominate as much as Snetterton, so he's going to try and do his best to get a good result. But this is a good qualifying result so far, but he still does have just under 9 minutes to go. So we've got yellow flags in sector 2, they have been cleared, so somebody's just briefly run off here, and we take a little bit further look around, and we can see here we've got Richard Jepp making his way around the circuit, the British driver coming into turn number 14 now, very shortly. That was 13, he comes into 14, in fact that's not number 14, getting ahead of ourselves there, that's number 14, he was going into 13. The camera angles are looking so similar typically, but that's the thing about this circuit as well, and it's something our drivers have to worry about, is in that final sector in particular, the corners become deceivingly similar in terms of appearances. As Jepp jumps into the pits here, remember our drivers must go around and come into the pits, they are not allowed to jump back to the garage. If they do, they will be disqualified from qualifying and start right at the back. And the last of our runners right now is Tony Hill, but he is yet to set a time, as he's making his way around the circuit and heading down towards the final sequence of corners here in the Ferrari, of course. And Tony, happy with how he performed last time out at Snetterton, from what I'm gathering. The ULAGS driver here making his way through what is turn 12 there into 13, and he's going to be coming into 14 in very short order here, looking very composed in the Ferrari. And what's this time going to be from the green Ferrari driver here, as he makes his way into 15, the left hand, full beans through 15, and he's going to have 16 coming at him very quickly as he makes his way into that final corner here. Can he nail it? As he comes out the corner, runs a little bit wide there, and our drivers do have to be careful with track limits at this circuit. You are encouraged to abuse the curbing, but we can see Hill crossing the line, and that time invalidated for running wide out of the final corner. Now, many of you will be wondering as well, why have we got the black and yellow strips on the apex of the curbs and on the exits? Well, those are track limit strips, and also they are intentionally there to stop our drivers from intending to run wide out of the corners or run too tight to the apex. You can imagine with those raised curbs, they'll unsettle the car, and they can cause damage to the floor panel of the car or to some of the aerodynamics. Of course, we don't want our drivers to receive damage to their cars, but it's to encourage them to stay within the limits. And as we see Hill there going a bit wide out of 6, that's going to unsettle the car and cost him some time and also perhaps some aero. But right now, Hill trying to find a timeout. There are only 1 or 2 drivers not to set a time. Lardier, Julien Lardier, the French driver from GPX Racing, also not having set a time as of yet. And a lot of our drivers seemingly having some difficulty in getting a time on the board, or a solid time. But to give you an idea of how close it is currently, from P16, which is Brett Krewkamp, who's in the pits right now, to pole position as it currently stands, it's a second that separates our top 16 as Krewkamp makes his way out of the pits. And we have not seen it that tight over the course of this championship season so far, but that is phenomenally tight as Krewkamp makes his way down to go on to the second half of qualifying. It's 6 minutes to go for the South African. Can he get himself back up into the top 10? Well, right now it is looking as as though Field is on course to pick up a pole position here. What of the fact he has got the 1:33.654, and the Swiss has got a 1.5 tenth of a second advantage over Chris Zuger. Zuger, of course, following around the circuit, not too far back right now, and the CHF Motorsport driver has got some traffic though. A Ferrari in the way here. I believe that's the Ferrari of Tardioli that's just in front of him. No, it's not Tardioli. In fact, Tardioli is coming out of the pits there, but we can see the Valkyrie Esport driver, Nicolas Tardioli, the Frenchman, making his way out onto the circuit. He's come out of the pits, put on a fresh pair of rubber, probably changed a little bit of the car as well, and the number 135 Ferrari is going around right now. So as all of our drivers are coming into that final third of qualifying then with 5 minutes to go, the big question will be, what can they do to improve? Can they find some magic out on the circuit? And indeed we do have situations such as, for example, Leusinger right now, who gets a little bit sideways coming out of 4, and we've got the Dream Pace of Racing BMW M6 there. It will be the case for the Swiss that he wants to get himself a bit further out the order here, because that BMW is going to fly coming out of what is turn number 9 and charging all the way round to turn 13 and 14. It's going to be tricky to handle into turn 14 under the trail braking, but he's going to have the strongest straight line speed of anyone in that sequence, and that is going to be some absolutely difficult stuff for anybody else to overtake, with the fact he can deploy so much power down the straight here as he makes his way around. And we can see everybody moving out the way as the M6 is going to try and charge through very shortly, and we can see we've got one of the Grumpy Monkey machines there doing a bit of weaving, but Leusinger flashing his lights here, I think to try and warn everyone ahead of him, look, I'm coming through, I'm on a flying lap. We can see the Ferrari has moved out the way there, and he's still coming through here, as I believe that the Bentley ahead of us decided to get a bit of a move on and decide not to impede or warm up their tyres. They feel ready to go. But as for qualifying right now in terms of up the front, Field is still leading, and he is in the pits as it currently stands, and no real change so far. In fact, the major change that's happened very recently is that we have seen that Voss has jumped up to P3 with a 1:34.038, so Voss right now getting a bit closer to the front here, but it may be the case that he's not going to make it 5 out of 5 today as he makes his way onto another lap, and we jump on board with RP Freeman in his qualifying session as he makes his way across the line to go on to another flying lap. So coming up towards turn 1, we're going to see here with the Porsche, it's going to be all about getting that rotation through these sweeping corners. We should see that he can attack the corners more aggressively compared to the Bentley, just for the fact he can get the rotation into the corner more easily, whereas the Bentley's got to be forced around. As we see, he's got a lot of traffic at turn number 4 here, and I think this may be an aborted lap already as he comes out the corner. Everybody trying to clear out the way, but I think Voss will be cursing under his breath a little bit with regards to the fact he happened to go into one of the slowest corners with a traffic jam of cars, and everybody, to be fair, very respectable in moving out the way as quickly as possible. Those blue flags being adhered to very quickly, but as it costs Voss the time as he makes his way through 7, and you can see getting on that power as soon as he's cleared that apex. You can see how the rear end was wiggling there as he was trying to get it settled down, and now coming up into 8 and 9 here, and he's going to have a similar trend. He's got to get that rear end calmed down and get on the power as quickly as possible. He rotates through the corner and goes on the attack, and you can see using the full runoff there to his advantage, and now we'll get that power down as Atkinson has now jumped up to P3. I should point out Atkinson has got half a tenth over Voss, as now Voss makes his way through towards turns 13 and 14. He's got that long run up towards the 2 corners, and he begins the trail brake sequence through 12, and he's coming down further and further, and into 30 and 40 he goes, and as he gets it done, you can see it calm with the car here, and now flying up towards number 15 into a left-hander, and then finally it will be turn number 16, but he's weaving, he's getting some more temperature in the tyres. He's going to go again, he's not going to settle for that lap, and I think Voss was feeling he was impeded over the course of the run through turn 4, so it will be a chance to go once again. He's got 2 more laps to potentially get himself back onto that front row, or as high up the order as possible, as we look a little further down the order. And I can tell you that in regards to Tony Hill, he has set a time. He has set what is a 1:36.069, putting him in provisional P24, and it's Lardier is the only driver right now who's currently making his way around circuit, the GPX Racing driver, who has yet to set a time. Will he set a time come the run out the final corner this time? Fingers crossed for the Frenchman, of course, as he does cross that time in line. I think he's actually gone on to another lap here, as we see a last of our timed runners so far is Lambrecht there with that 36.669, and Lambrecht, to be fair, the American driver from Get Speed, has been down the bottom end of the order, but that's no discredit to him. He's been staying in the fight, and we've seen a great racing spirit from Lambrecht, and we're seeing hopefully that Preston will be able to get some more points on the board tonight and have a calm race as he makes his way out to turn 6 and heads down towards 7. Of course, he's got Lardier behind him. I think Lardier might be trying to get into the toe of the Mercedes, so that way he can give himself a little bit of a boost down the straights. As we can see in the chat that everybody saying that there is a Porsche dominance once again, particularly from Lerb there, but we do have some very fast drivers as well. Lerb has clarified with regards to our Porsches, and that is very true. We do have some very fast drivers so far over the course of the season in the Porsches, but we will wait and see with only a minute of this qualifying session left to go. And we see that Lambrecht here, he has got Lardier getting closer and closer. I think Lambrecht's actually had a bit of a difficult lap here, as Lardier is going to leave it all to the last 2 laps to set a time. And we look back to Lardier right now, back to Julian as he makes his way through 13 and up into 14, and the car almost going wide there. You can see how it's unsettling the curve as we've got a Ferrari that spun out behind him. And was that Brandon Warren? No, that was not Warren. I'm not sure who that was who had the little span behind, but it was the case that they got it a bit wrong, as we see right now that Lardier making his way through that left-hander here, and as he comes out the final corner, can he improve this time and actually put a time on the board? And he crosses the line and he goes P5 to Julian, and that is phenomenal stuff. And he's still got 1 lap to go as Lambrecht moves out the way there, so Lambrecht right down at the bottom, but Lardier saving it all right to the end of the GPX Racing driver, and it has shown. And Field right now on his final lap. Well, Zuger and Atkinson are not on laps anymore, so they will not be trying to get the win, win off of Field with regards to getting pole position. But what about Voss? That is the big question. Well, Voss has got traffic coming out of turn 9. He's flashing his lights immediately, trying to get the signal through as they make their way down. But I think Voss has had to abort the lap, and that means he will not be at pole position for round number 5 here, as he's having to make his way through. But he's going to have to get through these corners quickly because he's got traffic coming through behind, and he won't want to impede them. But we see that Field making his way, and he's jumping into the pits. I think Field thinks he's done it as Lardier is on another lap. Can the GPX Racing driver potentially improve once again, or will it be the case that he saved it all to last? He's given it one shot, and that is enough, as he is the last of our drivers, I think, making their way around the circuit right now on a flyer. But if it is the case right now, then Field will have taken pole position, a 33.654 being the pole lap, and 1.5 tenths clear of our P2 man of Chris Zuger. But it is 2 Porsches on the front row, and it's a Bentley and a Mercedes, the Bentley of Atkinson and Junior's Mercedes taking the second row. But let's wait and see, and Lardier backing out of it, so it is the case that pole position has gone to this man, and he will be joined on the front row by Chris Zuger from CHF Motorsport. In fact, I believe it's the 2 CHF Motorsport drivers who have locked out the front row, and this is brilliant stuff from the team. And of course, whilst they're racing as independent drivers here, the team will take a little bit of pride back to the garage, and we will be getting underway with the race very shortly. Be right back, folks. Alrighty then, folks, we have got 4 minutes for our drivers to set their cars before we get underway with the race. And the big question will be, of course, for our drivers, who is going to be able to run away? Can our leaders potentially break away at the start, or will it be the case that we see some fast movers come up from further down the order? And the question will be in particular for this man right here, our P5 driver of Voss. Having not started anywhere but pole position for the opening half of the season, he's now got to find a way of getting his way up the order at the start of this race. And for Voss, we've seen a lot of pace, but big questions will stand. Not doubting his ability, of course, but how will he react to the fact he's no longer the driver at the front? Will he absolutely go for it and try and get up to the front, or will he play the more conservative approach? And conversely, the one driver he has been chasing and battling so much through the season, who is now on pole, albeit Field has told us multiple times as we look to our P1 man of Field, the Swiss, of course, What he was saying is in qualifying, he feels as though sometimes he's underperformed in qualifying and had to make it up in the race, but he's been benefiting from instance between other drivers and also just bringing that pace about and unlocking that full potential. Will Field make a break at the start, or will it be the case that somebody else is able to take the position off of him? It's going to be a question that Field has to answer, and it really feels like a role reversal here for Field and Voss, the two very competitive drivers, but we shouldn't rule out the likes, of course, of Atkinson, and Atkinson will do everything he can in that Bentley to try and get into the lead. You can imagine he would love an opportunity to take home the win here and show that it's not just a Porsche podium, that the Bentley can be up there. And it'll be the same for Dave Jr. This is the highest he's qualified in this season so far, the American in the number 10 car, and if he'd be able to get himself onto that podium tonight, I think we could be hearing a very jolly American in the post-race interview afterwards. But 2 minutes to go, and as we look back to the exteriors and we look a little bit further down the order, the one driver who I think has got some questions that he'll need to think about at the race start in particular will be Leusinger, with regards to the fact that BMW starting quite a way down the order. We can see him here in P22. He'll need to get as many places as early as possible and then make himself as wide as possible as the other cars try to catch up, because he'll have that straight line speed, but of course the downside will be he just doesn't have the cornering speed here. This is a very tight and twisty circuit, and the BMW is expected not to go too strongly here, but who knows what Leusinger could achieve, and some instance as well along the way could only just about throw a spanner in the works for everyone. As we take a brief moment to check in with race control to see whether there's anything else to be said right now, but otherwise we will have that parade lap very shortly in just under 1.5 minutes. We can also see around him here, we've got Nilsson in the Mercedes-AMG, the Vitesse Arnhem Racing, the Dutchman of course. He'll be looking to get a top 20 result as a minimum tonight, if not higher, and try and push for that top 10. And we have seen a lot of pace from Yun over the course of the opening half of the season, but he's going to have to work it all again today. And what will he be able to do from P19? Right at the back, meanwhile, we do of course have the pair of Brandon Warren and Lambrecht in P28 and P29. We can see there Brandon and Preston right on the back row, and what they're going to be able to do in the Ferrari and the Mercedes respectively. I think for them, they just want to have an instant free opener in terms of not being involved in any instance and pick up some places by keeping it safe. And the same for Mills in the Audi. Down in P27, we've seen Gareth Mills, the GM Racing driver, quite fast. He's got a lot of support in the crowd, and he's one of the favourites within the crowd for the fact he's never give up driver in that Audi, and with 30 seconds to go, he'll be thinking how can he get himself up that order as quickly as possible. But we look back to the front right now, and we're about to get underway with that rolling start in very short order, and when we do, it's going to be from the man in the front of Field who takes us away, Azuga alongside him. And with our track temperature of 30 degrees, an ambient temperature of 30 degrees and a track temperature of 38 degrees Celsius, those tyre temps are going to feel very hot, and this circuit is very aggressive on the tyres and brakes. And that's something our drivers will need to manage as well, as our CHF Motorsport drivers take us away. They've locked out the front row, Field and Zuga here. And indeed, Zuga in one of the highest qualifying positions he's been able to achieve over the course of the season. And I bet for Zuga right now, he'll be of two minds. He'd love to get ahead of Field going through the opening sector, particularly in the run to turn one, but at the same time, I think he'd be grateful if he can just settle in behind and then hold on to the position over the race distance. What will Zuga do? That'll be the big question, of course. And Atkinson, as we said previously, would love to get himself right into the mix of those two Porsches early on. I think if Atkinson can get himself in between the two of them and split them, we could be seeing the prospect of a potential win from the OTL Racing driver. I think this is Atkinson's time. He's right at the front, the highest he's ever been, and he would love that chance to get ahead of them. But will he be able to do it? That is the big question that will be on his mind as we are waiting to get racing. Not too much more time to go, of course. We do have quite a fast parade lap here, or warm-up lap for our drivers, and that is going to mean that they'll very quickly be coming around and charging around the circuit. As we have checked in with race control, and nothing else to note right now, so we are practically a go, go, go when our drivers take us all the way around. And as we look a little bit further down, we've got Romain Delcom here, down in P7, the Porsche driver, not having the strongest of qualifying sessions compared to what may have been available, but the Valkyrie Esport driver indeed in a competitive position in that P7 position, and he will be doing everything he can in order to try and get himself up into that top 5. But Lardier, of course, in the end, qualifying in P6, and I think for Lardier right now, Julian, the GPX racing driver, he will not not want to give up that position. He works for it in qualifying. He's put it all into a single lap to jump all the way up the field into the top 10 in the end. Just missing out in the top 5 very briefly at the end of qualifying, but I think Lardier will do everything in his power to take that position home. And if he can do it, it would be fantastic as they make their way then very gradually now through the run through 12 and up towards 14 they go. And at this point, it becomes a case of the field starts to stack up quite a bit. And we can see there we've got Richard Jepp just making his way around right now. And indeed, we look from behind the Harwin Racing driver here as he makes his way through down towards the final sequence of corners. The number 65 cars, everybody stacking up and getting into their positions right now. Indeed, some drivers out of position, and we can see that at the head of this pack we do have Field, who's now bunching everybody up. 2 more corners, and then when he comes out of turn 16, it will be lights out, away we go as everybody now gets into the 2x2 formation. And the prediction from Governor ITR is that it's going to be a Porsche battle again almost. We will wait and see, of course, Governor. I know some of your drivers are racing tonight right up in the mid pack, or indeed up towards the front. The ITR guys are going to try and do their best, but now we wait for the rolling start as taken away by Yersfield. And it's lights out and away we go, and Field and Zuger both going at very similar paces here. In fact, I would say that Zuger's had the better run out of the two of them, but he will be forced to the outside into turn 1. And as a result, we can see we've got some cars already going wide, and Atkinson battling with Zuger up into the opening corners here, as behind we've got a number of drivers coalescing together, and Pastoris in P13 right now making his way through here, as we see our leaders meanwhile coming into turn 4. And it is the case that Atkinson has been fended off for the time being, but I think that is Junior there going a bit wide, and as a result Junior right now will be dropping a couple places down. He's lost the position to Voss. He's dropped down to P5, and he's now got the McLaren there of what is, by the looks of things, of Walker alongside him. So Junior down to P7 as it currently stands, as they make their way up into the corner. And Junior's so out of position here. Everybody is now coming past the Mercedes driver. It's been a very difficult start for Junior as they make their way through turn 7, but everybody has made it through cleanly so far from what we can see. No major instance on our camera perspective of being whispered to us in our ear, as we see Pastoris on the inside here of Lefloic as they go up into turn number 9 here, and as they go through the right-hander, Pastoris up a position. A nice move, but he's now got the drag race as he gets into the back of the Mercedes there of Junior. I think he just got too close to the back of Junior as they all charge up towards turns number 14, 15. We can see Atkinson under pressure from Delcon for P3 as Zuger and Field are starting to make a small breakaway, and Atkinson goes a bit wide there out of 13, and there's contact. I think that was contact off the back of Delcom, and as a result Atkinson is spun. He moves the car out of the way immediately, but Delcom there, I think that was just a small tap. But as they make their way out of the final pair of corners and at the end of lap number 1, it is Field leading by 1 second ahead of Zuger. Chris Zuger ahead of what is, I believe that is Voss behind him right now, who is the best part of a couple of seconds back here, as we see they all come across that timing line, and it is Voss who is only 1.5 seconds down, and then we've got Walker in P4, and then behind in our top 5 it's Delcon. But of course that instant between himself and Atkinson will be over him in terms of a cloud right now, as we can see Faulkner on the offensive here. He's got Lardier battling with him for P6. The Irishman from Distinct GG has got the GPX Racing driver trying to be a bit aggressive, but now he will find a place. And then it is Bartle right now in P8, Harikonen in P9, and then we've got Pastoris, who's gained a lot of places on the open lap. He's moved up from P13 to P10, and the Swiss driver from AF Course Racing doing a very good job here to show his credentials at the start of the second half of the season. I think Pastoris in the break between rounds 4 and 5 has definitely thought about it and gone for it in this round, as we can see he makes his way out of turn number 7. He has got Lefloic trying to go alongside him here into 8. He's going to try and sweep around the outside. There's not the space for him to do it. He looks to cut back, does Lefloic, but I think Lefloic has actually made a bit of a mistake there under braking into 9, and as a result that's actually going to cost him momentum. As we see behind, we've got Moreira, who is chasing after this battle for what is P10, and he's looking on as Gian Petra's also in there as well. The Aston Martin driver, who we're focusing on right now, the Portuguese in the M2 competition, Aston Martin, you can see him making his way up towards turn number 14. And as he goes into the corner here, not able to find a way into this battle right now, and he has to look on as they all make their way through once again. A bit further down the order, I can tell you that Yun has gained a place on the opening lap, but it is the case right now. You can see 2 places ahead of him. The one driver who will be absolutely seething right now, it will be Atkinson. It's a repeat of Snetterton, whereas he's coming towards the end of lap number 1. He is involved in a collision. Let's notice forward. Somebody's into the wall there. I believe that is Tardioli, who's just gone into the wall. He got a little bit too much oversteer coming out of turn 16, and as he went on to lap, he clattered the inside wall, and as a result, that car is going to be damaged, and Atkinson gains the place. A number of drivers do, and the Valkyrie Esport driver was very fortunate then not to get away, to get away with that, because if the car had turned into the wall, that could have been catastrophic and indeed impeded a lot more drivers. As we see Coloridis right now all over the back, is Yun right now, and they will want to capitalise on what happened to Tardioli as quickly as possible as they go through turn number 6 once again here. And it's the fact that our drivers are starting to segregate into packs, as we see from Average Sharpie in the Twitch chat, and F for Atkinson, indeed it does. But imagine this, how he recovered at Snetterton last week, and the fact the field hasn't expanded as much as it did at Snetterton so rapidly here. Atkinson could come back very strongly into the top 10 once again, but we'll wait and see where he's able to do it. He has got a lot of mental reserve, we know that with Atkinson, as we look back up towards our front right now, and we can see that it's Pastorius who's lost a place to Le Floic, and we'll see that Pastorius making his way through the sequence of 11 into 14 very shortly. And you're looking in particular at the Ferrari here, the red Ferrari of Pastorius, as he makes his way down into the two corners of 13 and 14 here. He now does have Gianpetro getting ever closer as we jump on board with Sylvain as he makes his way through the corner of 14 and heads up towards turn 15 and 16. Right on board with the Ferrari driver here, and you can see that after losing the place to Le Floic, he'll want to get it back as quickly as possible as he makes his way through the corner, but he's got to be very wary of the fact that he does have Gianpetro, who's looking very strong at this early point in the race and is trying to find a way back into this one. Now, in terms of the weather forecast today, we've got a combination of sun and cloud, but we're not expecting any rain on the radar, but we do have a very high track temperatures here, that 38 degrees centigrade, almost the level at what we saw at Imola, albeit we're about 6 degrees down, but it's going to be felt by drivers as we continue to see here Pastorius making his way up into 3 and 4, in fact coming through 4 right now and collecting the car together and really having to get the car around each and every corner as Pastorius and trying to keep that momentum from Gianpetro. As we go back to the exterior cameras right now, and we can see that is the case that Le Floic is starting to break away, and really the top 10 are making their pack of their own up towards the front, and then we do have Pastorius at the head of the second pack around the circuit right now. As we look back up towards our leaders, and we can see that field 1.3 seconds ahead of Zuga right now, and they are in a very comfortable place, but look at the driver who's behind them, Voss in P3, the Porsche driver, our race winner last time out. He would love the opportunity here to get back into the fight for the lead, but for Voss the question will be for him, how long does he wait? Does he save the car, or does he decide to go all in early on? I think for Voss this is going to be a test of patience here, and he'll have always been the driver who's up front, but now he has to be the patient hunter rather than the one who's being hunted. As we see Walker meanwhile down in P4 here, and he's under attack here, and Delcom as they go into 15, and Delcom goes to move on the inside, and Walker has to react quite late to that by looks of things, and the Briton, he's got Delcom on the inside into 16, and Delcom a little bit of contact there, and I think Walker was pushed a little bit wide. It seemed as though it was the tiniest of door contact, but Walker down into P6 with that small bit of contact, and Romain right now the Belgian driver on the charge here in the number 24 car, and we will wait to see with race control if there's any penalties or warnings being applied to our drivers after laps 1, 2 and 3, but I definitely think it's the case right now that some drivers may be having a cloud hang over their head. As we see Delcom up into P4 right now, he's ahead of Faulkner and Walker, but both Walker and Faulkner would love to get that place back in short order. As we jump on board here with Ben Walker making his way right now through turn number 6 and heading down towards 7, and you've got to think from Walker's perspective, right, it hasn't worked out in terms of the fact he had that small battle with Delcom got through, whether it's aggressive or not, that's for the stewards to decide. In Walker's position, as you see, takes a huge chunk out of the apex there at turn 7, really attacking the apexes in the McLaren 720, and as he heads up towards turns 8 and 9 here, I think for Walker this one will now be about waiting for the strategy to play out, because he's going to be in a sequence here where he'll know that Faulkner and Walker have both battled one another quite a bit over the course of the opening half of the season. They know they're equal in pace typically, but they need Delcom to essentially dictate the pace for them. As we jump back to the exterior camera here, and we can see behind we do have Conan going on the offensive versus Lardier. He's got the inside into 13, and as they make their way down in towards the corner, in fact into the inside of 12 and coming into 13 here, we can see that behind Bartel also trying to get the move, but Harikonen up to P7 with a very bold move down the inside through 12 versus Lardier here, and the Ferrari driver from Intruder Racing will now light the opportunity, I think, to get closer and closer to the back of Walker, who's just up the road from him, only the best part of 1.3 seconds, and he is charging after Walker as quickly as possible. But this is really where the change changes are happening right now. They're happening in the hunt for the top 5 positions, and we look a little bit further back, and I can tell you that behind Lardier is he's been overtaken by Bartel in the run down towards turn 1 here, and Lardier really struggling to hold on to those positions right now. He qualified into P6, but he's down to P9 here, and I think there may be a bit of damage to the car. Looking at the side panel there, the right hand side panel does seem to be quite heavily bruised, and I think it may be the case he picked up some damage early on in the race, as we see Lafloic now the next driver to attack Lardier here and go for the move. Or could it be that Lardier had the qualifying setup and he didn't really have the right setup for the race? That'll be the big question as well, because some drivers will prefer qualifying setups over race setups. They're allowed to change, of course, but you can see the side of that Porsche has definitely been bruised. I think there might be some aerodynamic damage, which is costing him some of the pace around the circuit as he makes his way up towards turns 8 and 9 right now. And we can see Lafloic looking ever closer. He's trying to get his nose in there as Lafloic trying to get in the mind of Lardier. And that's the thing that Marvin does do very well when he nails it. He can be such an annoying driver to have behind you, just for the simple reason that he'll love to try and make you think he's going to go for the move, but he's actually not there. He's not going for the move, and you can see that Lafloic right now staying in that P10 position, but for how long will be the big question, as the Valkyrie Esport driver from the number 717 car is doing everything he can to try and take on Julian as they make their way through turn number 14. And this is where he closes up. He goes a bit wide, then the car almost snaps on him, and I think Lafloic will now have a reminder in his head, okay, you're faster than the guy in front, but don't overdo it, because otherwise Gianpetro, our P11 driver, Hugo Gianpetro, the Frenchman, also from Valkyrie Esport, as he runs a bit wide there out of turn 16. That may be a track limits warning for Gianpetro. He would love to capitalise on this as they all make their way onto what is a lap number 7. They all come through turn 1 once again and head through 2 and 3. And as we look a little bit further down the order here, we could see we've got Richard Jep battling with Brandon Warren as they make their way side by side up towards turn number 1 here. And I think it's the case that Jep has got the move down. He's going to sweep round the outside, and before they get into the braking zone, Warren has been overtaken. The Harwin Racing Mobile up to P21. It's been a difficult race so far for Jep, and indeed for Warren as well. Warren's actually gained a number of places. Remember, Brandon Warren started down in P28. He's up to P22, but I think it might be the case that where some of the incidents have occurred around him, he's gained positions, and the one who's lost out the most of everybody is Dave Jr. down in P28, having started right up towards the front. The American now all the way down, and what can he do to come back? That will be the big question here for Junior. And Gareth Mills is the last of our runners just behind him right now in the Audi, of course, in P29, but don't rule them out. We've still got the best part of 64 minutes of racing to go, and anybody can come back into it for a top 10 finish at this point as the GM Racing machine presses on, hunting down Junior and Wilcox up ahead, and he's got quite a gap to close down. 2.5 seconds to the next driver, but meanwhile back up front, I can tell you that the gap between our leaders is gradually expanding in favour of Field right now. It's 1.6 seconds between Field and Zuga is being caught by Voss. Voss is closing gradually, and on that last lap, on that previous lap, it was a 35.319 for Zuga, and it was a 35.586 for Voss. So the two drivers exchanging lap times back and forth, but I think it may be the case that right now Voss is the slightly faster driver around on the circuit, as we see our P3 man starting to close down Zuga here. Perhaps he's just trying to put on some early pressure. We'll wait and see, but you can see just how Zuga not having the cleanest of lines through 4 and into 5 here by comparison with Voss, and this is where Mathis will start to capitalise. He'll want that pressure to be eked on to the P2 man and try and get Zuga into a mistake, or alternatively into a position whereby he just doesn't have the pace out the corner and he can go for the move. He won't want any dramatics early on in the race, however, because it's the dramatics which can cost you the result very early on, because he's looking for the win, is Voss. Don't count him out here for the win versus Field, who's now 3 seconds up the road from Voss, but he's got to do it gradually, as we see behind him, meanwhile, Delcom in that P4 position, and you can see how the battle for P4 has opened up somewhat. Delcom has got some pace here by comparison. On that previous lap, it was a 34.8 for Romain. Meanwhile, for Ethan Faulkner behind him in the Ferrari there, you can see in the rear view camera shot as we've got a battle between Walker and Harikonen. Cut that to a second, and we can see that in turn number 11 right now, it's the case that Harikonen on the inside here, and as they go through 12 here, I think Harakonen's going to have the move, and he's got the door shut as he makes his way through 13 and under braking into 14. That is P6 gained by Harikonen, the Intruder Racing driver, now getting the advantage over Walker and continuing to press on as we look backwards here, and he makes his way through turn 15. He's got the McLaren all over his rearview mirror, however, and I think that Walker would love to have a shot coming back, but again, the big question stands: are our drivers here igniting their full pace, or are some drivers simply holding back and instead waiting for that opportunity, waiting for the pits here. And I think given the fact that we've seen so many results go the wrong way for drivers such as Faulkner, such as Walker here, it may be the case. I think that Faulkner in P5 and Walker in P7 are both waiting, but right now it'll be the case for Walker in particular. He'll be waiting behind the guy we're riding on board with, Harikkonen, to see what happens from the Ferrari driver, as behind them we do have Ross Bartel, who we saw briefly run wide out of turn 3 there, the second of the Grumpy Monkey machines, albeit he is the lead Grumpy Monkey machine around the circuit right now, is doing very nicely in the Bentley. And indeed Bartel, one of those drivers, we know he waits for the race to come to him. He has a big strategic game he normally plays here, so the fact he's in P8 right now is a really good sign for the Bentley driver, because he's essentially waiting for an opportunity to arise. He's going to be playing the strategy game here, so don't expect too much from Bartel right now, but expect things to suddenly happen from Bartel's perspective as we go into that second half of the race. That'd be my prediction. Bartel's going to come alive later on here. As we look back, we can see Lardier, he has got Lafloid behind him, but Lafloid has not really put on a charge over the last 3 to 4 laps. He's getting a little bit closer against Lafloid as they make their way into 11, but it does seem to be that Lafloid has started to calm down a little bit. And indeed this battle for P9 between Lardier at the front of the camera shot and Lafloid, who's going to follow him into turn 14, and behind them Gianpetro, it seems to have just dissipated for the time being, and I don't think the three of them can really get away or gain on one another too much, although Lafloid is getting closer once again. But what's he going to do when he gets close? Is he going to go for a move, or is he simply going to be patient? As we look back to P12, and this is our P12 man of Helder Moreira in the M2 competition machine, the Portuguese right now in the Aston Martin. He's got Crew Camp all over the back of him here, and Crew Camp looking very strong as they make their way out of 16 here, and we ride on board with Crew Camp, who's trying to charge after the Aston Martin ahead of him. As we're sitting with the roll cage right now with the driver, they go into turn 1, and you can see Moreira really struggling under braking through 1 and 2 here, as they now go into the right hander of 3, and it is the case that really Crew Camp, I think, is losing momentum because he's so tight in behind the Aston Martin and wants to go in the offensive out of 2 and 3 in particular. But as they come through 4 and 5 now, this will be his opportunity. If he can get a good run out of 5, he can go on the attack from 6 to 7. As they come out the corner here, we look to the exterior camera, and it's the case the Aston Martin will open up its engine, of course, at this point. But what can Crew Camp do? Can he get a bit closer, or is he still stuck behind? He's stuck behind for the time being, but Crew Camp looking much stronger in Sector 1 versus Moreira. That definitely seems to be the case, but we'll wait and see what our P13 man can do later on with an hour of racing still to go. Further down the order in P14 right now, at the head of the next pack of cars, we've got Tardioli here. Of course, Tardioli with that horrific moment coming out of the final corner on lap number 3, going on to lap number 4, where he almost put it sideways into the wall, but he actually glanced the inside wall on the start-finish straight instead. But he has got Yun and Atkinson behind him. Nilsson there in the Mercedes, the black and yellow Mercedes, the Vitesse Arnhem racing machine, the Dutchman. He's under a lot of pressure right now because he's got Jonathan Atkinson behind, and Atkinson, of course, is trying to make that recovery drive after what was a disastrous lap 1 through no fault of his own. And just checking in with race control at this point, we are seeing that we do have a number of stewards' decisions starting to be formed here. As soon as I do hear anything in particular, folks, I will let you know. But the only thing we have so far is the fact that car number 4, which is Lardier, as we see our drivers here, we'll focus on the battle in here, and we'll come back to it in a second. We've got a drive-through penalty for Richard Jep, so it's all starting to kick off as we see here that Yun having to go slightly defensive versus Atkinson as they come into turn 1, and Atkinson starting to inch closer to the AMG machine here. And I think for Jonathan Atkinson right now, he'll be thinking, well, Yun, if you can't get past Tardioli, I'm going to do it, and I'm going to get through you in the process. He goes to the move into turn 4, but he can't quite get alongside, and it was the case. I think Yun tried to go as late on the brakes as possible. I think what he's trying to get through to Atkinson is the fact, look, don't fight me just yet, I could get Tardioli, but Atkinson has had enough, and you can see how close he's getting to the back of that Mercedes, and Yun definitely feeling the sweat on his neck right now as they, oh my goodness, they're going to go side by side up into turn 7, and Yun looks the inside of Tardioli here, and that means they're going to lose a huge amount of apex speed. And as they do, you can see, look who's just made a 2-for-1 special. It was at the store, and Atkinson has picked up a 2-for-1 at turn 7 as Yun tries to stay on the inside into 8 and 9. He's still there as they come out of 9, and Atkinson, if he can pull this off, it would be phenomenal as they make their way down towards turns number 10, 11, 12, 13 and 14, and we can see that Atkinson side by side with Yun as they go into the right hand, and Yun will have the positional advantage here, that Atkinson using the full width of the circuit, and Tardioli coming back into this as well, but Yun able to stay ahead through 13 for the time being, but Atkinson almost pulling off a 2-for-1 out of 7 there. That was so close, and that was all started by Yun just simply going a bit too aggressive into the apex of turn turn 7 versus Tardioli to get the move done, and Atkinson, as we said, waiting for that opportunity, and he saw it and he went for it. He's gained a place, and now he's going to look to try and take the place here of Yun as they make their way out of the corner and go on to lap number 12. And you can see Atkinson getting closer and closer. He's definitely at this point, I think, the Briton thinking to himself, right, now I have to get Yun out of the way and then break away. And you can see, look at the lines that Atkinson's taking by comparison with Yun. Yun definitely feeling the pressure right now as we look back from his car. You're right on board with the Dutchman as they make their way down towards turns 4 and 5 here. They go into the hairpin of 4, and as they come out here, it's that double apex, of course, with 5 being the second apex. Now they're going to the left-hander of 6 as they make their way out the corner. You can see Atkinson getting closer and closer. He's looking for the move. He pulls out to look for the move into turn 7. They make their way down to the corner here. Atkinson on the inside, and it's Yun on the outside. They go into the braking zone, and it is the case. I think Atkinson's got this done, and yes, Yun can go for a cutback, but Atkinson, once he's gone for the move, you can see he's already pulling away, and Atkinson up into P14, but he's had to really work for it, and you can imagine right now that Tardioli and Pastorius behind would love for an opportunity to come back at what is Yun in P15 as they make their way down towards turn 14. It's the long run to 14, of course, and we will very shortly take a look back at the shooting decisions, but right now, the action out of the circuit, I can think you all agree that the action is more better than the shooting decisions as they make their way into 13 and 14. They come into the braking zone here. Any move from anyone behind Yun? Nope, they all settle into an order once again. But we look up front and we can see Romain Delcom with a drive-through penalty, the Belgian, and I believe, so the number 24 driver there with that drive-through, I believe this is for the contact that was experienced earlier, and indeed with number 22. And if you're wondering who is number 22, that was with Atkinson. So you remember that Delcom making that move where he taps the back of Atkinson on lap number 1 out of 14. That is the drive-through penalty, as we've also got a drive-through penalty for Adrian Loisinger here, and the reason for that, simply put, is the fact that the contact with car number 72, and number 72 is Wilcox, who's right behind him, funnily enough, and Wilcox will benefit from that, and Loisinger will have to serve that drive-through penalty over the next couple of laps, as we can see that Delcom has dropped all the way down to P20 right now, so he's lost all the places he's gained, and of course the stewards deem that necessary, as we know he makes his way out of 4 and 5 here, and he's got it all to do again. But meanwhile up front, I can tell you Field is now 5.2 seconds ahead of Zuga, and Zuga has been reeled in over the last couple of laps, a little bit more by Vos. The gap now 5 tenths of a second, but oscillating between 3 to 6 tenths over the course of the lap, and we can see behind them and looking to make the move. Well, my goodness, I thought Faulkner was going to go for it then and not even give us a chance to breathe on it, and we can see the distinct GG driver there, the Irishman, looking very aggressive here versus Vos, and I think Faulkner would love an opportunity to get himself onto that podium nice and early and control the pace in the hunt after Zuga as they make their way out of the final corner to go onto lap number 14 here. And Faulkner really coming alive as we see Harikonen behind them, of course, with Harikonen and Walker both being promoted, what with Delcom losing the position, and we can see they make their way through the corner through turn 2, and it is now a case of Faulkner trying to find a way into this. Now, where do you think he's going to go for the move, you may ask? Well, I think Faulkner's got to be smart here, as we see they make their way in to turn 4, and it's going to be one of the situations where he'll need to analyse what Vos is going to do, but given how close he was in the final sector, I think Faulkner's going to go for it in the final set of corners. So turns 13 and 14 would be a good opportunity for Faulkner to get in there. If not, it'll be in turn 15 or 16 as he's getting ever closer, and he looks the inside at the last moment, and Faulkner being very brave there, but Vos going for the cutback. We can see, I think, that Faulkner was in two minds of whether to go for that move, but in the end Vos staying there, staying ahead, and by simply placing himself in the right position. As we look back from the Frenchman in P3 right now, and you've got that angry Ferrari of Faulkner roaring after him, of course the Ferrari 488 chasing after the Porsche 911, and as they make their way out of 9 and head up towards 10 through to 14 right now, how close can Faulkner get here in the long run? That will be the big question. He's getting closer, he's inching ever more. Will he look for the move here as they make their way up into the final sequence of corners? They come through 13, under braking into 14 they go. It's no move this time, but Faulkner getting closer and closer to back as Loisinger comes into the pits to serve his drive-through penalty here, but we can see that right now Vos has got Faulkner all over the back of him like a bad rash, and indeed that rash is not going to go away anytime soon. I don't care what kind of cream you get for it, the Faulkner rash is not going to go away, and it is going to be there to stay, as we see it that Faulkner continuing to put that pressure on as they go onto lap number 15 right now. The Irishman definitely feeling racy this afternoon. afternoon at Misano as they make their way in towards turn 3 right now. And we look a little bit further down the order and we can see Lafloic right now in that P7 position, and he has got Gianpetro closing up to back him. Of course, a lot of drivers gaining positions, what with drivers being given penalties, particularly drive-through penalties, and Gianpetro and Lardier both in this battle right now with Lafloic. Of course, we've seen it time and time before, but they are staying there as Atkinson is up into P13, as you can see on the timing screen there. But coming back to the battle between Faulkner and Voss, it is the same as they go into turn 7 this time, and no move from Faulkner this time around, it should be pointed out. But what I can tell you is starting to happen is that Harikonen and Walker are behind. You can see them at the rear of the camera shot as the drivers make their way up into turn number 9 here, and both Harikonen and Walker, the Ferrari and the McLaren driver, would love an opportunity to come back at the fight, and this is for P2. We have got 5 cars effectively battling for P2 right now, and then we've got a race leader who's just gone through the camera shot there, who's just simply starting to creep away with things. And indeed, that is the problem that Faulkner, Harikonen and Walker will not want, is the fact that the race leader is going to disappear down the road. Indeed, Voss as well, but I think Voss right now just not able to find a way to get ahead of Zuga, instead having to stay in this position and perhaps playing the strategy by comparison as they all make their way out of 14 and up into 15. As they make their way around, and indeed hearing there from Governor ITI on the Twitch chat that a lot of drivers will be saving tyres. Those tyre temperatures are so critical here with the track temperature being so high. Indeed, it is that big question, do you push or do you save the tyres? If you push, of course, you can gain places, but will it kill the tyres in the long run and make you vulnerable towards the end of your stint? And it's the big strategy play. Do you be smart about it and wait and preserve the tyres and spread the temperatures, or do you simply go all in and say, you know what, I'm going to take these tyres as far as they're going to take me and then try and hold on to the position when the tyres are outside of their optimal zone? And that's the big question, of course, for everybody here. But right now, it is a case that our P2 through to P7 are separated by such a small margin. Well, in fact, to P6, my apologies, they are separated by only 2.5 seconds, as we see here that Voss under a lot of pressure from Faulkner once again. He goes to the inside into 7, but will Voss try and cut back to the inside? He's blocked this time as Faulkner parks it on the apex, and Faulkner learning from last time out that Voss would go for the cut back on the inside. And you can see that Voss flashed his lights here, and I think that might be just as much of the back mark as it is for Faulkner, as we see that Loisinger picking up a 5-second penalty as well. Not sure what that's for, but as the battle moves on, he's pulled out the weight of this entire pack of drives, and that must be so frustrating for Loisinger in the fact that he's picked up that drive-through penalty for reasons that we already know in terms of the contact with another driver, but then he's got to wait so long to let everyone through. But Voss right now flashing his lights here non-stop, and I do wonder whether he's got a word he's trying to get through to Faulkner. But Faulkner up into P3, and now it's the case that Harikonen would love a shot at coming through here, and you can see Harikonen as we jump on board with the Ferrari driver. He is on the offensive right now versus Voss. Voss in a little bit of difficulty here versus the two Ferraris. He's in the Ferrari sandwich as he makes his way through at turn number 16, and we're riding on board on the bottom layer of that Ferrari sandwich. That's Harikonen in P5 as they make their way up towards turn number 1 and on to lap number 17. Now, of course, the question for Voss will be, does he battle as hard with the next Ferrari that comes through and start risking his tyre temps, or does he start to think about letting these guys through and tucking behind the pack? Well, we know Voss really wants every result as well, and he wants a strong finish in every race, and as a result, I don't think he's going to be inclined just to let drivers come through as they make their way through the corners, as they make their way through 4 and 5 once again, and they come up towards 6. Now, looking a bit further down the order, I can tell you that we do have Bartel here in P10, but I think there was actually a move coming on here from Walker. We're just cutting back, and we can see Walker all over the back of Harikonen here. So the McLaren driver, I think, has been waiting a little bit for an opportunity as they started to cluster up, and you can see he was a bit close to the back of Harikonen there, but no move this time. So we come back to our P10 driver, Bartel, who's chasing after Lardier, and I can tell you on that last lap, Julien Lardier, our P9 guy, who runs wide out of turn 7 now, and I think the tyres are starting to go a bit for the Frenchman. It was a 136.4 for Lardier. Bartel, meanwhile, behind him, a 135.1. So Bartel coming alive right now in terms of pace and trying to hunt down a driver, as we hear that Atkinson has been given a 10-second penalty. The number 22 driver has got a penalty, and that is for, as we just check our notes here, and that is for contact with what is car number 21, and car number 21 is Crew Camp. So he's been given that 10-second time penalty that he will have to serve in the pits, because he's either got to serve it in the pits or the race, whichever at the end of the race, whichever one comes first, and it will be his pit stop. But Atkinson having a difficult day, only compounded now by an incident, by the sounds of things, of his own doing. But of course, that's for the stewards to decide. We're just reporting the facts that they've fed to us, and we can see that Bartel here in P10, comfortable in P10, but meanwhile the other grumpy monkey machine of Crew Camp just cannot find a way past Moreira. He's been there for some time, has Crew Camp in P12 behind the P11 man of Moreira as they make their way through turn number 1 once again. No change so far, but indeed it is the case that Crew Camp, I think, just biding his time. Moreira and Crew Camp matching one another for lap times near identically, only a tenth normally separating them. It was the case that time that Crew Camp was only a tenth slower than Moreira, but these two staying nose to tail, and I think it could be all about the strategy in both of their minds, which one of them is going to outlast the other. As we look a little bit further down the order, we can see Petros Koloridis here, the Greek driver in the Silk Cut McLaren here, making his way into turn number 4. He's currently trying to chase after Tardioli. Tardioli, of course, with that wounded Ferrari, he's 1.6 seconds down on Tardioli as they make their way through turn 6, and Koloridis in a bit of a quiet space right now, not too much happening where he is, but I can tell you a bit further down we've got Brandon Warren, who is under attack from Dave Jr. The two American drivers, of course, Warren from VRS Satellite Racing in that Ferrari versus Dave Jr. as Jr. almost goes off the circuit out of turn 6. He is really trying to attack, coming out of turn 6 up into 7 here in the Mercedes, trying to use the stability of the front engine rear wheel drive Mercedes car versus the mid engine rear wheel drive Ferrari there, but it was the case that Jr. almost been in the car there. It was on the full limits, and he's going to try and go all the way around the outside here into 9. If he does this, this will be incredible, and I'll tell you one thing, Warren has given him the space, he's shown him the respect, and Warren going for a very tight line there off the apex of 9, and you can see why Warren did that. It was to give him the ability to get on the throttle early and essentially power steer the car out of turn 9 and up towards turns 10, 11 and through to 14, and as they make their way through here, it's worked out for Warren. Warren really tactically placing the car there, but Junior trying to take the car all the way around the outside through 8 and 9. That is very braced up, and definitely Junior looking very racy and wanting to prove, okay, it hasn't been his day, but it will be his opportunity to show off some attacking moves here as he makes his way through 15, and we can see that Warren are really under a lot of pressure right now, and Junior mounting that pressure on the two Americans going toe to toe here, but it is the case that Warren is holding off the Mercedes for the time being, but surely it can't be long before Junior sides up another move. He's looking into turn 1 potentially, but he just makes a little weave to try and distract distract Warren as they make their way through 1 and into 2 here, and it is the case that the rearward American right now is really on the charge, but can he find a way through? That'll be the big question as they go into turn 4, and he has to back out once again. He can't quite find the move, but it's the very, oh goodness me, and they both go deep into 4, and it's a collision between the two of them there. We could see that it was Warren who went deep and Junior followed him there. That was very unfortunate for both of them as we look back up towards our front, and we can see that Field is leading now by 7.7 seconds, and Faulkner actually has got through into P2. It was off camera here, but Faulkner has got up into P2. He's ahead of Zuga, and look who is now all over the back of Zuga. It is Voss once again, the Swiss driver here under huge pressure, and I'm not sure if there's been a mistake. I'm just checking my timing screens right now, folks, and I think there has been a mistake from Zuga, because that last lap was a 36.3 from Zuga, whereas Faulkner was on a 35.7, so definitely it might be the case as a mistake. Alternatively, the Porsche drivers are really starting to hit the cliff with regards to the tyres and are having to conserve them even more, because Faulkner is the man on charge. He's breaking away, and Voss right now just cannot seem to find a way beyond P4. He's stuck in there very tight, and he's having to wait for the opportunity as they make their way through at turn 6 and up towards turn number 7 once again. And the question will be at this point, what can Zuga do? Can he just hold off Voss here, or does he find himself in a position where Voss just finds a way through it? And of course, Voss right now, I would love to know what's going through the mind of Mathis as he makes his way into turns 8 and 9 once again. Surely in his mind, it's a difficult day at the office for Mathis because he just can't seem to find a way to get out. Or is this all part of the master plan? That's the question. Well, if it is, then he's definitely in a race for P2 as it currently stands, because the race leader has just disappeared, and Faulkner is getting away in that P2 position. He's now 7 tenths up the road from Zuga and a further 4 tenths ahead of Voss as they make their way into 13 and 14 once again here. As they go into the right hand complex sequence, we can see that no change from our battle from P2 to P6 right now as they all make their way through and head around to go on to another lap very shortly with 43 minutes of this race remaining, and we can see everybody going a bit wide there out of 15. There's going to be some track limits warnings there for our Porsche drivers in particular, but everybody trying to use as much width of the circuit as possible to try and keep some speed as they make their way onto lap number 21 here. And Voss, you can see he's of two minds. Does he go for a move? Does he try and signal it? As we see Harikonen getting very close here, and I think Harikonen is under pressure from Walker. Walker is behind him right now, and these drivers constantly nose to tail, and you can imagine it's only going to take a spark to ignite what is expected to be a series of overtakes here, and whoever gets overtaken first is probably going to lose not just one but perhaps up to 3 positions in this pack of 4 drivers, as really Faulkner has run away a little bit now, and it's the case that it's the battle for P3 as the pit window has opened. 10 minutes, ladies and gentlemen, for our drivers to come in and make their mandatory pit stop, and which one of these 4 is going to be the first to flinch? That'll be the question. Whoever goes first will be looking for the undercut, you can be sure of that, but Faulkner right now running away, and Zuga under still pressure. He's taking that middle line into 9. He's trying to defend as much as possible. Is a CHF Motorsport driver. It's impressive stuff here, but you do have to wonder how long it's going to be before going that aggressive in terms of the defence and trying to hold on to the position. It's going to cost him the race time here, as we can see that behind from P7 Lafloic downwards to GM Petro and P8, the guys in P7 downwards are closing up on this battle. Oh, goodness me, and Harakkonen's gone wide out of turn 13, and that means that Walker could have capitalised, but he wasn't close enough. But the tyres are hitting their limit, and I think we're going to be seeing pit stops from at least one of the guys here as they make their way through. Who's going to pit? And it is Voss who jumps into the pit. So Voss has had enough of being in this train, and he is the first to react, and that means he's now going to be looking to undercut these guys on the next lap as they all make their way across. Once again, 9 minutes of the pit window still to go. Of course, our race leader has not pitted, and I can tell you that Ross Bartle has also pitted. He's come into the pit from what was P9. He has got a 5-second penalty there, and I believe that may be for a little bit of contact earlier on in the race, but we see that he is making his way along right now. Indeed, that 5-second penalty, I think that might actually be for track limits. I'm not getting anything confirmed to it. It's 10 seconds, in fact. So that has been updated for me, ladies and gentlemen, and that is for Bartle making a late move on car number 24, and the contact saw car 24 go off the circuit, and that was Delcom, who was a lap down at the time. So we look back up to the action right now instead of drivers in the pits, but I can tell you that Yun, Lambrecht, Moreira, and also Tardioli all into the pits, and right now Faulkner will be doing everything he can to eke out that gap versus Zuga. He got the gap open to 2 seconds with that battling, folks. That's how much time they're losing in battling one another, and Faulkner is running here for as quickly as he can because of the fact that if he can now come into the pits, let's say, he can potentially undercut the pursuit for P2 and give himself even more space on the circuit. And now be the question for the Distinct GG driver, what does he do here? Does he go long on his opening stint and use the gap he's got in order to try and offset the fact that he may be undercut, or does he undercut here and then be prepared to do a little bit more sensible driving at the end of the race? Well, he's going to come into the pit, so he is going to go long on the second stint here, and I think this is the right choice from Faulkner as he clips the wall there. Field also into the pits here, and Zuga as well as coming. So Harakkonen and Walker continue around on the circuit right now, and they are both going along by comparison here, and I think their idea is they want to try and jump ahead of the battle, or if they fall behind in the battle, then they're going to have the fresher tyres at the end of the race. And particularly the one driver who that will benefit the most is Walker. We know how fast Walker has been behind that battle for P2 for so long, but he's just not been able to deploy it because he's always been behind Harakkonen, and perhaps now it'll be his opportunity. And we have to imagine that if Harakkonen doesn't pit come the end of this lap, will Walker do that? I would say Walker must pit. Surely he's going to have to pit if Harakkonen doesn't, because otherwise he may just be stuck behind Harakkonen for the rest of the race as they make their way down to turn 7 here, and you can see how Walker is just tapping into pace. He's got it on tap and he hasn't been deploying it. He's been waiting for so long here, and I think Walker could actually be in with a good chance of the podium here if he gets it right on the strategy call. But we will wait and see, of course, as we still do have 39 minutes of this race to go. But it could be any one of 4 to 5 drivers who end up in P3 in this race, and it's brilliant to see as they make their way around once again here. Now I can tell you in regards to the drivers who pitted first, Voss has come back out in P14. He's just completed his initial outlap here, and as he crosses the timing line, of course, the drivers he's battling with, we've got Field here coming out of the pit. We've got Zuga just making his way out right now, and he has got all over the back of him as we see Voss coming through here. We're going to wait and see it as Voss gained the positions by the fact that the other drivers have had a slow pit stop. He makes his way through turn number 3, and where is Voss right now? Well, I can tell you that on our screen it is saying that he's in P11, and that means that surely it must be Faulkner just a little bit up the road here. Well, in fact, Faulkner has already come out the pits, and that's how much time Voss has not gained. As a result, we can see Voss in the rearview camera shot. They're coming out to turn number 6, so him pitting early It's not benefited him in terms of getting him ahead, but it has given him clear space out on track. And right now, we can see that Zuga has been caught behind Richard Jepp. And remember, the Harwin Racing driver at the head of the camera shot here does not have to give way. He is not down a lap. He is racing for position here, and Jepp deciding to stay out, whereas everybody else around him has decided to pit, minus Atkinson, who's in P6. So Jepp right now really throwing a spanner in the works for Zuga and also for Faulkner, because you've got Voss back there who can really start to gain on these guys because they've got traffic, albeit it's not lap down traffic, it is racing traffic, and they've got to find a way past it or wait until the Harwin Racing driver comes into the pits. 5 minutes to go in terms of the pit stop window here, and will Jepp peel in here or will he stay out once again? And surely this is going to be costing Zuga and Faulkner a huge amount of time as they make their way along. And you can see, in fact, that Faulkner staying out, also it's Jepp staying out, and Zuga having to go defensive versus Faulkner, and Faulkner's going to go around the outside out the final corner here, and I think Zuga has been caught napping slightly as they make their way down towards turn number 1, and Faulkner has got the inside line into 1. He's got the move done, and Zuga did not expect that to happen, I don't think. I think Faulkner there just capitalised on the fact that Zuga was caught sleeping at the wheel very slightly, and Faulkner is up into what is P6 right now. But effectively, this is what we're looking at would be back into P2, with the fact that Faulkner dropped the position at the pits. He took longer in the pits compared to Zuga. He's got the place back there. And Harikonen, where is Harikonen, you ask? Well, he is just behind, and we can see that Voss and Harikonen, well, Harikonen has come out ahead of Voss, but they're nose to tail here. So Harikonen going long, he has jumped ahead of Voss due to the pit stops, but these two will not want to fight one another, not just because they're part of the same ITR racing team, Intruder Racing, but because if they fight one another, they lose out on an opportunity to capitalise on the fact that Richard Jepp right now is causing the mother of all traffic jams, and he's legally allowed to do it. Imagine that, ladies and gentlemen, in Britain being able to legally allowed to cause a traffic jam. Well, he's using the British form of queuing, and it's working wonders because they can't find a way past. They haven't got the straight line speed in the run to turn 14, and as a result, the Mercedes driver right now, if he knows how to plant it on the brakes, which I'm sure he does, but you can see Faulkner's going for the move. He's going very late there into 13. Oh, and Jepp almost loses it there, just caught up behind Faulkner, and that was a very audacious move from Faulkner to go for the move through 13, and I think Jepp just got caught out under braking because of how close he was to the back of Faulkner. But Faulkner is really wanting this as Jepp has gone into the pits right now, so he's made it last as long as possible with 3 minutes to go. But Faulkner there with a very, very brave move, and I would not have imagined he would have done it into 13. I would have thought he would have gone into 14, but he made it count, and he's actually bought himself a bit of breathing room to Zuga. He's got a 6/10 of a second gap ahead of Zuga, and behind Harikonen and Voss now have to catch up here and capitalise on what is outstanding. But the circuit we're at, Matt Emmons, is the Misano World Circuit here. As our drivers, I've got 35 minutes of racing to go here, but you can see a Walker is ahead of these guys, so Walker's come out the pits and he's gained on them. He's come back out ahead of the ITR train here of Harikonen and Voss, and the Distinct GG driver, well, he's going to be looking to hunt down Zuga and Faulkner as well. We do have all 5 of these drivers once again battling for P2, but it is the case right now. Walker under huge pressure, and he goes a bit wide out of turn 7. He's got Harikonen and Voss all over the back of him right now as we look backwards on the McLaren driver here, and we can see that Walker really feeling the pressure. Now the question for Walker is, how soon does he switch the tyres on and try to break away, or does he eventually succumb to the pressure and let them through? Now if you're in Walker's position, you've got the clear space up front on circuit. I would expect that Walker's going to try and demonstrate that he's got the pace to match these guys, if not pull away from them. But that will be the big question as we see. There's Harikonen, look, see inside through 12. He's going to be on the inside into 13, and there's contact, there's major contact there, and Harikonen is spun, and we can see that Walker has been sent off the circuit there, and Voss, well, he's rejoined ahead of Voss, so Voss has had to back out of it because it's so far back. But Harikonen going for a move there, and whilst it worked for Faulkner, it did not work out for what was Harikonen at the time. Goodness me, getting all my names mixed up here, folks. We've just seen the same move done twice by 2 different drivers, but it's not worked out for one and it's worked out for another. Faulkner able to make the very risky move into 13 work, but it was the case that Harikonen, who's dropped down to P7 right now, and he will be absolutely burning to want to get back into that battle for P2. He's a long way down the order now. He's got a gap of 10 seconds to recover after the spin from 13, as we see that he's come out in clear traffic after returning return to the circuit. He's got Lardier just behind him in P8 as we've got Gareth Mills coming out there, a lap down these guys, and Gianpetro not able to get, and Gianpetro going very deep into turn 4 there as Gareth Mills is on his inside, and remember that Mills is a lap down, so he has to let Gianpetro get back on to the racing line there over the course of the blue flags being waved, but Gianpetro just getting it wrong into 4, perhaps unsighted a little bit going past the back marker there, but definitely the case. Gianpetro making that mistake, but he stays in P9. He just loses a second to Lardier, who's further up the road now than him. But meanwhile, back up front, I can tell you that Field in a place of his own right now in the lead. He is 7 seconds ahead of his pursuers, and the Swiss driver is on course right now with 33 minutes remaining for a comfortable race lead. But again, never say it's over until the very end, folks, because anything can happen here. But Field is controlling this pace, as we see behind Faulkner and Zuga. Well, they're going toe-to-toe once again, and now Faulkner is the one being hunted. We saw him as the hunter so much in the first stint, and now in the second stint as Velkovsky has come into the pits with a drive-through penalty. It is the case right now that I think that Faulkner is under a bit of pressure from Zuga and just needs to manage that gap. As we take a look back at our stewarding reports right now, nothing too new coming in, but what I can tell you is that as they make their way through turn number 3, once again we can see we've got a Porsche that has just come out the pits here and is a lap down. That's Trippiana, and he has to back out, and he does indeed, does Trippiana. Eduardo Trippiana there, the Spanish driver who we haven't seen too much of, the SRB IJA team racing driver there, making his way behind right now, and indeed a quiet race for Trippiana, albeit in P21. He'll be happy with that. He's got Hill, Tony Hill 5.5 seconds behind, and Delcom attacking Tony Hill. And to give you an idea of that, you can see that Delcom on the inside versus Tony Hill as they go up into turn number 7 here, and I think it's going to be a standard move unless Delcom goes too deep on the brakes. And indeed, Hill has been passed for the position here, and Delcom has gained another position. He's got to make that recovery, of course, and the fact that he had that drive-through penalty for the incident between himself and Atkinson on the opening lap. Speaking of Atkinson, where is he, you may ask us? Well, he's in P16 right now, because remember, he did pick up that time penalty that he had to serve in the pits for some unnecessary contact with another driver, and Atkinson in P16. He's 1.7 seconds down on Junior, who has got a 10-second penalty, has Dave Jr., who's just ahead of him here, the American driver, a difficult one, and I believe that 10-second penalty is for the contact between himself and Brandon Warren earlier on. We saw that on camera where both drivers went way too deep into turn 4. Brandon Warren literally led to seeing Junior fall off the circuit with him, and Junior made the contact, and that's what that 10-second penalty has been awarded for. But as we check back in with our stewards right now, no more drama right now in the stewarding pool, but we can see further up the order once again that it is the case that Yun in P13, in a quiet P13, and Nils right now doing everything he needs to bring home a position that may be unlucky for some due to its number, but Yun not so unlucky here in that P13, and he's 2.5 seconds down on Crew Camp, who's ahead of him, and he's got a nice gap of 5 seconds to Pastoris, who's in P14 behind. And we look a bit further up the order even more so, and we can see that Gianpetro here in that P9 position after that mistake. He is gaining again on Lardier, and on that last lap, to give you an idea, he gained a second on Julian Lardier ahead of him. The two Porsche drivers here have been very close throughout the race. Gianpetro at 1:35.2, Lardier at 1:36.2. So these two exchanging lap times in the advantage of Gianpetro, and I think he will be there to attack Lardier within the next lap or two. But we will wait and see, of course, what he's able to send when he does get close. Is he able to send the letter or send the move completely? That will be the big question for Gianpetro. He would love to get into that P8 position, and the Valkyrie Esports team would be very happy. As we see Lardier, they're getting very wrong into turn 8. In fact, going very wide on the corner. Is there a problem with Lardier's car? That's the question. But it definitely does not look a happy Porsche Lardier's vehicle right now. And we can see that Gianpetro has just simply got past and is pulling away. And I think it may be the case that Lardier is nursing a broken car right now, or a wounded car at least, because look how much he's fallen back in the run down towards turn 13 and 14 here. That is not normal for Julian as he makes his way into turn 14. The GPX racing driver, I think there is a problem with that car, and he's having to act as a nurse to it as he makes his way out 14 and up towards 15. And it's now a case of trying to hold on to positions. The next driver hunting him down, however, will be Helder Moreira here, and Moreira is just coming through turn 15 right now. He is 4 seconds down, or 5 seconds down Lardier, the Aston Martin driver there in the M2 competition machine in P10 as it currently stands, and will be trying to do everything he can to get up the order towards the end of the race. He has got, however, Ross Bartle just behind him here, and Bartle has been behind Moreira on the first stint, and you can see Bartle going a bit deep into one, just a dirty air washing the car a little bit wide of apex, and Bartle not able to gain. But right now it is very close, and Bartle would love to get into that top 10, I'm sure of that, but he's got to get past Moreira, and Moreira has proven to be his equal in this race thus far, but they still do have 28.5 minutes of racing to go, and there will be questions to ask from the pair of them as they make their way then out to turn 6 and head down towards 7. Bartle the closest he's been as they get ever closer to turn number 7. He looks to his side, but he's not close enough here. The Aston Martin just pulling enough of a gap, but Bartle deciding to go deep and trying to get the power line out to turn 7, but he goes too deep, and Moreira holds on and opens the gap back out to 8 tenths of a second as they make their way in towards 8 and 9. It's going to keep oscillating here, but the question will be, will Moreira make a mistake? It seems though Bartle just cannot stay close enough to capitalise where he's the stronger of the two cars, or the stronger of the two drivers, we should really say. But meanwhile up front, whilst Field is still ahead by 9 seconds now, it is the case that Faulkner, he's still got Zuga all over the back of it. Now of course with Faulkner, we can imagine it may be the case as well that the Irishman respects the fact that he's not going to catch Field anytime soon, and perhaps what he's doing is actually protecting the tyres, because we do have those track temps. We have seen the track temperature drop by a degree centigrade since the start. It was 38, it's now 37, and perhaps Faulkner, now he's got that P2 position, might be just simply managing the gap to Zuga behind. That last lap was a 35.4 from Faulkner, it was a 35.7 from Zuga, and I think it may be the case that right now Faulkner is trying to get Zuga to push a bit too hard in order to try and kill his tyres early on, and then Faulkner can just gradually saunter off into the distance, or we may find that P4 man of Ben Walker here starts to catch up and get in the way in short order as they all make their way down towards turn 7 once again. And it's gone a little bit quiet on the battlefront for P2 right now. I think all of these drivers just simply waiting for the opportunity and also trying to see how their strategy plays out versus the other drivers here. And when I say strategy, not in terms of any more pit stops, in terms of protecting the tyres versus going all in. How much fuel do they have in the car? Are they trying to fuel save? Those are the questions. I think it'll be in the last 15 to 10 minutes where we'll see this battle really open up again. But we can see right now, wherever it's the case that Zuga closes up in the corners, Faulkner just opens up a little bit more of a gap on the straight, and they seem to stay at that 4 to 5 tenths of a second window as they come down into 14 once again. And it is right now the case that Faulkner very comfortably running here and seemingly just holding that gap to Zuga at a comfortable place. Albeit I wouldn't be too comfortable myself if it was 3 to 4 tenths, but definitely the case that the Irishman feels safe and sound right now as they come out of the final corner and go on to lap number 31 with 26 minutes remaining. As we check into the chat, we see nothing more so far from anybody with regards to who they're supporting or any thoughts on the race. Feel free to throw in your thoughts, folks. Do not be shy. Feel free to put something in the chat, even if it's just a hello, or just let us know how you're doing and what you've enjoyed the most so far out of the race. That's always good. Or just let me know who you're supporting if it's the first time that you're tuning in tonight. But we see Neil Jun here in P12 in a very quiet position right now, not really gaining too much on anyone, not really losing time on anyone. And I think Jun just at the moment focusing on bringing home this P12 until he sees the light of another driver ahead of him or behind him as he makes his way down towards turn number 1 once again on lap 31. The Mercedes are looking comfortable right now, and this is a good performance from Jun. He's kicking off the second half of the season with a good start. We look a bit further down and I can see that Brandon Warren right now making his way through what is turn number 12, well, turn number 11 into 12 and then through into 13 and 14. And the American driver, after that contact with Dave Jr., of course, Dave Jr. with the 10-second penalty being applied to him, and Brandon Warren here in that P19 position. He'll be trying to close up to Jr., but I think it's a long gap away. I think Warren right now will just be focusing on holding on to that P19 position. We started this race with 29 drivers and we still do have 29 drivers, and the last of our drivers right now is Petros Koloridis here, the Silk Cut driver from Greece in the number 78 McLaren there, making his way down towards turn number 7 here. Very far away, he's got Loisinger at 2.8 seconds ahead of him, and we've got Adrian Loisinger who you're looking at right now, the BMW M6 driver who picked up that drive-through penalty earlier on for contact with another driver, and it does mean that right now these two battling really over the last couple of positions, and they're not close enough to be battling anybody else by a small margin so far. The next driver up the road is Jesse Monrose there, the Frenchman making their way down in towards turn number 11 here. The BSP Racing driver in the Bentley having a bit of a quiet one on the sidelines right now, although chasing after Lambrecht, and Lambrecht is only 2 seconds up the road. Who's Lambrecht? Preston Lambrecht from Get Speed in the red and black Mercedes, of course, chasing after Pastorius there, but Pastorius is a lap up right now, and Lambrecht is actually going after Gareth Mills, who is a further 10 seconds seconds up the road. And Gareth Mills, the Audi driver, of course, from GM Racing, the South African, and making his way through turn 1 in the number 5 car as he goes across 2 and heads up towards turn number 3. But as we look a little bit further up, we've got Velkoski as well in P24 right now, and in the Porsche there, the German driver, the Back to Motion driver. He's got some faster drivers coming through who are on a lap ahead of him, and he'll have to respect that in due course. But we look back up front and we can see that Field still leading, now 9.7 seconds clear of Faulkner right now and in a very comfortable place. But as we come back to the battle for P2, again, it's the same as what we saw earlier as we hear from Swizzy on the YouTube chat saying push ITR. It is the case that you'd expect that, but the question has got to be who is saving it to the end here. We have got a lot of time remaining, but you can see as we look back once again from Faulkner's car, the Irishman here making his way through 15. He's had Zuga there for so long, and surely Zuga's got to be a two minds here, because you can see that Walker is now within the same distance to Zuga as Zuga is to Faulkner, and we know that both Walker and Faulkner would love a chance to finish on the podium here today, and Faulkner looks as though he's comfortably heading towards that podium, but it's the case that Walker, he's been deprived of opportunities to be on that podium over the first 4 races, either through incidents or things just not working out, and he would love that chance to swipe away P3 if not P2 as well from Zuga and Faulkner. But as they make their way into 4 and 5 once again, it is the case that right now they're just nose to tail and no driver trying to go for any moves right now, and I think that's because they're just trying to play it smart and see how the tyres evolve over the course of the race. And of course the Porsche drivers will be a little bit concerned about the tyres, because the tyres on the Porsche can be extremely sensitive if they're pushed too hard, albeit on the Ferrari and the McLaren as well they can be, but it's the case on the Porsche in particular. We've heard just how delicate you have to be in getting that fine balance in terms of the tyre life and the preservation. But we can see Walker here in P4 as we jump on board with the McLaren driver once again, making his way right now through the right-hander of turn 9 before he gets the long run down towards 14 right now, and you can see how he's just staying in there right now. And as we listen in, let's just try and listen in for any short shifts. Well, definitely no short shifts there from Walker. He's going full attack as well. So all these drivers seem to be locked in a nose-to-tail procession right now. But we will wait and see, as we do see there that Zuga went a little bit errant on the braking through 13 into 14. And this is the closest Walker has been for some time. And I think this could be his opportunity. Will the McLaren driver go for it out of 16 and into 1? He goes a bit deep. However, Walker, he gets it wrong on the brakes. Too close to the back of Zuga. He locks up the brakes. And that means now Voss is going to try and come through. Voss has got himself ahead. He goes slightly defensive into 1 here, and the first mistake is made, and it is Walker who loses the position after getting closer and closer to the back of Zuga. But it's not a major error, it's just a minor error, and Walker is now at the back of this pack hunting down P2, and that's how critical those mistakes are. No driver will want to make a single mistake here, because if you're at the head of this little pack, then you fall to the back of it, and you've got to find your way back into the fight, of course. Meanwhile, I can tell you a little bit further down the order right now in P6, Le Floic, the Frenchman from Valkyrie Esport, he has got Harikonen getting closer and closer to the back of him. On that previous lap, to give you an idea, Le Floic a 35.7, Harikonen a 35.2. Remember, Harikonen was in that battle for P2, but he made that mistake in terms of the battle into turn 13 on a lap a little bit earlier on approximately lap number 28, which just didn't work out. The move on the inside versus Walker into 13. There was contact, and I believe the stewards have deemed it as no further action required, subject to any further confirmation from that. But we have not seen a penalty for either Harikonen or Walker, and Harikonen, of course, falling down the order. It was a very brave move, but now he's got to try and find his way back towards the top 5. And the first driver on his hit list is Le Floic. Of course, Marvin there at the head of the camera shot as they make their way through the right-hander of number 11 and into 12. But we see Harikonen, he did want to get a good result today. He wanted to iron out some mistakes, and he makes a mistake there into 13. The car just goes a little bit wide, and I think it may be the case for Harikonen right now. He may have to think about if he can't close this gap down over the next, say, 6 to 7 laps. He just thinks about bringing home a P7, because a P7 would be a good start to the second half of the season as he makes his way through turn number 16. But of course, all of our drivers will want better results than what they've got, unless they are the winner, of course, and they're all driven to succeed as best as possible. But they do have to start thinking right now about potential damage limitation, or just the fact the car may not be able to do the distance if they push it too much further. But meanwhile, looking a bit further down the order, we can see Moreira. He has got away from Crew Camp. I think there may have been a mistake from Crew Camp a little bit earlier on, because we haven't seen anything more happen between these two. But we can tell you that Moreira in that P10 position right now, he's holding on very well. And I believe also we did have a little bit of an issue with regards to Bartle at some point. In fact, Bartle dropping back to P14, and we can see here he has got Atkinson, who is ahead of him right now, as Dave Jr. has a 10-second time penalty against him. He's at the back of this hump right now, but we have got the two Bentleys nose to tail here as they make their way onto another lap. And it is the case just up ahead, and right now they've got Koloridis, who is a back marker effectively, as we see Atkinson the head of this Bentley column and holding on to P14 as it currently stands. And we take a very quick sip of water. And we can see as Atkinson makes his way out to turn 6, he's got Koloridis ahead of him, and he's flashing his lights to say to Koloridis, come on, I'm coming into a wide corner here, feel free to let me through, or at least give him the signal to say you're going to need to start thinking about me coming through soon. And I'm sure Koloridis will respond very shortly indeed, as they all make their way through 7 up into 8 and 9. But meanwhile, away from this, looking back, we can see that Zuga has got P2 back off of Faulkner there. Now, where did it happen, you ask? I'm hearing in my ear that he made the move into what was, by the looks of things, as they come down into turn at number 4 here, he made the move up into 14 on that previous lap. We didn't quite catch it on camera, unfortunately, folks, but we can see that Zuga is now at the head of this pattern. Faulkner has tucked in, and Voss now is the man in P4 with Walker behind him, and they continue to push around once again here. And we can see that Faulkner looking to the inside into 7, but it's just a feint here. It's not a proper committal as they make their way out of the hairpin style corner, and we note that Faulkner very close behind, as we see that Walker going a bit wide there out of turn 7. I think Walker might just be simply feeling a little bit of too high temps on his tyres right now, and will need to think about backing it off slightly as they make their way through turn number 9 and head onto the long run down to 15. But it's looking very close from these four still. They are nose to tail. They are only separated by 2 seconds from one end to the other here. Any one of them, of course, could come home in P2, but we've also got Lafloig and Harikonen only a further 8 seconds down the road. And if any major drama starts to happen in this pack of 4, you can imagine Lafloig, Harikonen and Gianpetro would love to catch up to the back of it as they all make their way out to turn 14 and head up towards 15 here. Further down, we can see that Harikonen has got close to the back of Lafloig here. He's all over the back of the Porsche driver now, is the Frenchman in the Ferrari. And as they make their way through 15 and up towards 16, will a move be coming on soon? That will be the question. Will Harikonen be able to find a move, or will he have to wait once again? Well, we will wait to see as they head out the final corner and go on to lap number 37 here. And I suspect Harikonen will try and find the move within the next 2 to 3 laps, because then that will set up nicely to go chasing after the battle for P2 to the very end as they make their way through 2 and head up into 3 here. Through the right-hander they go. No change so far, but he's getting closer. He's inching ever closer. He's not quite able to get it on the brakes here as he waits for another opportunity. And meanwhile, in that battle for P2, we can see that our 4 drivers all still noses out, no change at the moment. They are waiting for that opportunity. What about Lafloig? Well, he's got enough of a run from 6 to 7 here that I think he's going to be okay. Although we can see Harikonen coming out wide initially here, perhaps trying to send a message to Lafloig to say, I'm going to go for the dive on you here, trying to get in the mind of Lafloig, but Lafloig decided not to respond to it, instead being very patient. As we can see, they make their way here down towards a turn number, what is turns 8 and 9 as they go through the right hand here. They've got Wilcox and Delcom ahead of them, and Delcom has just passed Wilcox. Jason Wilcox here, our P21 driver, making his way down here, as we can see. But meanwhile, in the rear of the camera shot, you can see Lafloig under pressure here as Harikonen's getting closer and closer. It's the closest he's been in this battle. They come through 12 up into 13. Will he go for the move here, or will he stay away from it? He goes a little bit wide. Oh, and there's a bit of contact there, and I think Harikonen just is unable to get the car to settle coming through 13 in the dirty air, and that is what saw him make the mistake earlier on. And indeed, that's something that he's worried about. I think it's the dirty air off the back of that Porsche in the trail braking zone from 13 to 14. It's just causing the car to become so unstable that he just simply cannot get too close, and that's the problem. Harikonen gets very close in the run through to 13, but in doing so, he hasn't got the stability when he needs it most to potentially make the move, because that's where he's strongest in the run from 9 all the way round to 14 with the slipstream and the power he gets out of 9. And you can see again, we now go back to that sequence where he's tucked in behind for so long. He has to build up the advantage up to 9 and then try and deploy it towards 14, and he's just not able to get it done at this point in the race, and that is very frustrating here as you see Lafloig just simply holding a consistent line And the question for Harakone is, well, what do you do at this point? Well, I think he'll need to try and send it somewhere else, but he'll need to try and get as close as possible. He's got to try and analyse where he can get in the head of LaFloid and cause him to make even the smallest of mistakes. Try and force an error out of the Porsche driver. And you can see, look what he's trying to do is LaFloid goes defensive into 8, and that's going to cost him a lot of momentum through 9. And this could be the chance he wanted for Harakone as he makes his way out the corner here. And we jump aboard with the Ferrari driver as he comes out of the corner. And you can see immediately LaFloid weaving to break the toe. He'll be allowed one move, but multiple moves like that will be frowned upon. He may get a word in his ear from the stewards as he gets closer and closer to Harakone. He's going to try again here, but he's got to think about that stability issue through 13, and you can see it. The car just does not want to turn on the apex curve there, but instead he converts it into an advantage. He goes deep through 14. This is really smart work from Kevin as he makes his way into 15, but he's still there. But look how close he is this time. He used the fact he was going to go deep into 14 to give him the slingshot run out of 14 up to 15, and this means now he can find an advantage, and that is, he knows he can carry more momentum into 14 than previous. Will he be able to find a way on the next lap? We will wait and see. As meanwhile, back up front, I can tell you in the battle for P2, it's still Zuger, Faulkner, Voss, and then Walker after, and there is no change so far, but you can see how Walker is getting closer and closer to the back of this pack right now, particularly to Voss here as they all make their way off the exit curve of 6 and head down towards 7. And I think really right now, we've got 12.5 minutes to go. If there's going to be a move, it is going to start coming soon. Because we'll enter those final 10 minutes. And the tyres will be in their best operating window if they're not already, after they're starting to head past it. And it's who can keep the tyres in that window and have enough fuel to fight to the very end. That will be the question on their minds as we look a little bit further down the order. I can tell you that Atkinson into the pits for a drive-through penalty now. And Atkinson, the number 22 car, I'm just going to check in with the stewards as to what that is for, ladies and gentlemen. If you just mind me a brief second here. But Atkinson picking up a drive-through penalty, and that we will wait to have confirmation as to what that is, but that's just been announced. But we'll wait to see about that. Crew camp in P11 right now, still on the back of Moreira, and this has been going on for some time. Remember that Crew camp was behind Moreira for so long, but he just couldn't find a way through. And as they come out of 9 and head down towards 14 now, you can see that Crew camp has got a brilliant run out of turn 9, and Moreira uses the straight line acceleration of the Aston Martin to hold on there. He went defensive as well, but that's how strong the legs are in that Aston Martin versus the Bentley. The Bentley just does not have the acceleration compared to the Aston Martin, and it means that Moreira holds on once again, as he has been doing for so long and doing admirably so. The Portuguese hold on to the last top 10 position here, and can Crew camp find a way past? That will be the big question as we look back up to our battle for P6, and you can see that LaFloid has still got Harakone all over the back. In fact, Harakone very close this time. LaFloid going to the middle of the circuit and just preventing Harakone from putting his nose down the inside into 4. But as they come through 5, they're side by side. Harakone just keeping his nose in. He backs out bravely, but now he gets the cutback momentum through 6 in Harakone. Well, he's going to be squeezed to the inside versus LaFloid, but he's got to be given the space. He is alongside, and as they come down into turn 7, there's a bit of contact there. Oh, goodness me. And well, you can see that Harakone trying to literally make LaFloid go to the edge of the circuit there, and I think they're going to be both calling to the stewards about that one. There was double contact between the pair of them as they make their way into 8. They're still side by side here. Neither driver wanted to give up or give the other more than the room. They're literally minimal lotto as they make their way out of turn 9, and you can see how LaFloid is literally having to cling onto his position and weaving all over the straight here, and surely it's going to end in tears in a minute if they don't settle this down as they come through 11 and into 12, and you can see how Harakone is so wanting to get through. He's going to try and go around the outside of 13. This is brave from the Ferrari driver. They go into 14, and you can see how LaFloid has to go very deep to block off Harakone, and Harakone is still there, and the Ferrari driver doing everything within his power to find a way through. And as we ride on board here, we can see a stop and go 30-second penalty for Atkinson. I'm not sure where that's coming from, but Atkinson seems to be picking up penalty after penalty here. But meanwhile, Harakone, he falls back from LaFloid once again here as they go on to lap number 41. But surely the bubble is going to burst for one or both of these drivers soon, because it is getting to that boiling point right now. And I don't mean the fact that the track temperature's dropped by a further degree and the ambient temperature's gone down to 29 degrees centigrade, or the fact that the commentary box right now smells of sweat and heat. It's the fact that right now in the cockpit of Harakkonen and that of LaFloy, they're pushing one another all the way right now, and it's starting to get nitty gritty all the way to the end with less than 10 minutes to go, 9 minutes remaining, and you can see Harakkonen has backed off a little bit here. I think he's giving himself a breather, giving himself mental respite, and then he'll come back once again. And Gianpetro, you can see him at the rear of the camera shot now. Ugo Gianpetro is only 1 second down on this battle for P6, and he could benefit from this if they end up costing each other more time here as they make their way through the corners and as they continue to make their way down the straight. We can see how Gianpetro is really gaining on these guys as they go again around through turn 9 and make their way up towards turn number 14. And you can see this time that LaFloy not weaving and Harakkonen standing behind. I think there may have been a warning given to LaFloy with regards to the weaving down the straight there, the erratic weaving, as they make their way through number 12 and into 13 once again. And Harakkonen very close, and I think he is the one with the greater pace at this point in the race, but he just cannot deploy it. As I can tell you that meanwhile in the battle for P2, what the race leader being 13.5 seconds clear, it is Chris Zuger at the front of this pack for P2 right now, and we've still got Faulkner, Voss and Walker behind him. There's no change between these guys. They are all still in that processional order that we've seen for the best part of the last 7 minutes, as we see Zuger go wide there, and that is going to be one difficult one now because he's got the marbles on the tyres. The dirt on the tyres will mean that braking for a little while is going to feel a bit more uncomfortable. The car won't want to settle as quickly, but they make their way through it, and Zuger definitely under a lot of pressure now. They all started to come alive, albeit Walker making the mistake there out of 6, and we can see that Faulkner looking for the move. Zuger goes defensive. Faulkner forced to go round the outside. He can't find it here, but Zuger really struggling now, and it does look as though as a result Faulkner is going to go for the move anytime soon. As we look a little bit further back briefly, and we can see that Harakkonen all over the back of LaFloy. Once again they go down into 7, and it is a repeat of what we saw only laps ago as LaFloy goes to the inside line and parks it as much as he can, but he goes a bit wide out the corner. He goes very wide out the corner. And Gianpetro is now within slipstream distance effectively of the pair of them. He will start to really gain the toe down that straight from turn 9 through to 14. But they are all nose to tail right now, as we can tell you that Zuger versus Faulkner, they are as they were at the moment. No change, but you can see how close they are. And then in the battle for P6, we can see how Harakkonen tucked in behind as close as he possibly can be. But Gianpetro is there as well. And he's getting that double toe off of the pair of them. And he'll want it, as we can see, Harakkonen trying to go around the outside into 13 again. But it just didn't work out that time because he was further back, and whilst he had the momentum to get himself partially alongside, LaFloy probably didn't even notice him because of the fact he only got alongside as they made apex, and as a result he took his line there and Harakkonen had to back out. He just didn't have the space available to him to push through, and as they make their way out of 16 and head down towards another lap onto lap number 43, it's now Gianpetro who's looking very, very likely to go on the offensive versus Harakkonen with only 6.5 minutes remaining. Meanwhile up front in that battle for P2, we're going to have to keep switching between these ones, folks. Sorry if you get motion sickness on this one, but we can see that Zuger is still being really hunted by Faulkner here, and looking back, Zuger has got the army of cars behind him all wanting a place on that podium, and none more so than Faulkner would love that P2. The Irishman pushing behind, and Voss behind him, and Walker also behind. They all stay in that order right now. No change so far. We will wait and see with 6 minutes remaining as they make their way in to turn number 8 and 9. Meanwhile behind them, I can tell you that LaFloy once again going defensive through turn number 7, and we can see Gianpetro going very wide out the corner, and Harakkonen right there once again with an opportunity here. He's got a lot of momentum into 9 now. Does he use the momentum here, or does he use it in the run to 14? I think it's going to be into 14 once again. We've seen this so many times as they make their way out of the corner and head down towards 14. And this time it's Harakkonen. He's 3 tenths back. He will continue to gain here, but I don't think he's close enough, as I can tell you that up front there's no change in our battle for P2 right now. But we can see that Harakkonen there, but he's standing by and he goes a bit wide out the corner, and he's on the outside and he's trying to find a way to get the cutback, but LaFloy being smart about it and parking the car just in time to prevent the cutback line that Harakkonen was trying to use there as they make their way through. But meanwhile, in the battle for P2, we can see that is the case that Zuger, Faulkner, Voss, Walker, they're all there once again, and we ride on board briefly with the P5 man of Walker. You're riding on board with him right now, the Briton, who would love a shot, at least P4, if not to get onto the podium here, but he's got to get through Voss first, and then he's got to find a way past either Faulkner or Zuger, whoever's the next one in the way at that point in time. There's no change, and in fact, I believe that Harakkonen has got the move done here. We can see that Harakkonen is up into P6. We just missed it off camera, and I'm hearing finally made it into turn 1 in the end. He got the move done. I believe it was a mistake from Lou Floyd. He made a mistake out of 16, and Harakona has finally got it done. He got the move done due to a mistake, and we can see that in the lap times as well. On that previous lap, Harakona of 36.0, LeFloid of 36.4. Just as we looked away there and didn't think that Harakona had it, it was the case that LeFloid made a run wide out of turn 16, and that is how it's changed places right now as they make their way down through turn 7 and up into 8 here. And will LeFloid be able to mount a comeback? I'll wait and see, folks, and we have to wait and see, but I do not think he's going to be able to here because Harakona has been the one with the more pace over the race. But right now, back up front, we can see that in the battle for P2, 4 minutes remaining, it's the case Zuger, Faulkner, Voss, Walker, they're all still nose to tail, and I can tell you that Harakona is currently safe versus the drivers behind him, as we can see on the timing screen there. And in fact, Harakona has started to break away from LeFloid and Gianpetro, and Gianpetro getting closer to the back of LeFloid as they make their way onto another lap number 45. We've got approximately 3 more laps to go if our maths is correct here, as the drivers make their way through. We can see they all come through the left-hander here of what is turn 2 up into 3, and Walker looking for that opportunity. He's so close to the back of Voss right now, but Voss won't let him have it unless he absolutely makes it all the way down the inside, of course. And we can see that all 4 drivers, none of them wanting to give up this position. They all want to fight. They're all in there to the very end. And meanwhile, up front, whilst we briefly take a quick divergence away from our battle for P2 here, we can just tell you that Field, we haven't seen too much of him recently. The Swiss is the best part of 12.5 seconds ahead of the battle for P2, but that's enough for Sid, our race leader for the time being, of course, as we see Zuger actually making a small breakaway here. He's got 6/10 over Faulkner. I think Faulkner's actually made a mistake out of 7 into 8 because he's fallen back a little bit, and in fact Voss and also Walker all over the back of him right now like a bad rash as they make their way out of 9 and head up towards 14. And this could be an opportunity for Voss, given the fact there's only 2.5 minutes to go. Now he'll really want to turn the wick up everything. He'll want every little bit of power that he can get as they make their way through. A drive-through penalty for Richard Jepp down in P17. We can see that on the board. We're staying with what's happening here, and no change at the moment. And I can tell you with Ugo Gianpetro, he's on the back right now. You're looking at he's at the rear of your camera here as they go through turn at number 11, and we can see Gianpetro hunting down LeFloid here with Harakona already breaking away. He's got over a 1.5 seconds on these guys as they make the way, and we can see that LeFloid makes a mistake in towards 14. The car just didn't want to settle down. It got squirrely at the rear end, and Gianpetro up into P7. And I think LeFloid has hit the cliff, and the car can go no further. 2 more minutes remaining meanwhile, and now the only battle in the top 10 to be decided is the battle for P2. Will it be Zuger in P2? Will it be Faulkner? Will it be Voss? Or will it be Walker? That is the big question, and we have got only less than 2 minutes to go as we see they all stay nose to tail. They continue to push around the circuit there, and as they come through the left hand of turn number 6, we're very grateful for the fact that we've had this battle all the way through, but how is it going to end? That is the big question. Personally, I think Zuger has got enough of a command of this P2 position. I think Faulkner's the one who's feeling the most pressure right now because Voss is coming alive, and also Walker is pushing Voss faster and faster each time, and Walker has been waiting until the very end. And I think with only 1 more lap to go after this, it's any which way for the battle for P3. But I think Zuger will just start to creep away. He's opening that gap out of turn 9 once again, and you can see he's just getting away as Zuger, and it means that Faulkner is under increasing pressure from Voss. Voss tucked in right behind this time as they come through 11 and head into 12, 13 and 14. Will Voss go for a move here, or will he wait until the final lap? If you were Voss right now, what would you do? I would say personally you've got to go for it here. You've got to try and make a move happen, but he wasn't close enough in the end, under braking into 14, so it will be on the last lap unless he can find some magic in turn number 16. The leader being on the final lap. 1 more lap to go as Field has crossed that timeline to go into lap number 47, but we can see that Faulkner right now has fallen off the back of Zuger here. He will get the distant toe, but he'll no longer be right there in the slipstream path as they make their way down towards the final lap of the race, and we can see that Faulkner making his way into turn 1 here. We've got Voss and Walker behind. No change, no move so far, but it's the case that Faulkner's got to be so strategic now about how he deploys his braking and where he tries to kill the pace of the drivers behind. As we can see Voss, they're getting very close out of 3 and just having the nose cut off almost there by Faulkner as they go into 4. Faulkner making the last minute defensive move, and just about within the limits there by looks of things as they come through turn number 6, and we can see that Faulkner under huge pressure right now as the time is up, and that means we are on the final lap. They come down, and Walker looking for a move around the outside here of what is Voss as they go into turn number 0. He's going to try and go all the way around the outside. There's the space, but he can't quite get it done. But Zuga is pulling away as they make their way through turn number 8 and up into 9. As they come up into this corner, what I can tell you, there's no change at the moment, but our race leader making his way through turn number 13 and 14. We'll come back to him very shortly as he crosses the line. But in this battle for P3, we can see that it is the case that Faulkner under that huge pressure. But we do have to briefly cut away, ladies and gentlemen, as he's only got one more corner to go. He's controlled it once he got into lead, and it will be Vesfield who returns to the top step of the podium with a win at Misano in race number 5. A brilliant effort from the CHF Motorsport driver, and in the end it looks as though, as we had to cut away there, that Faulkner has gone off as Zuga, the other CHF Motorsport driver, will come home in P2, breaking away at the very end there. A brilliant effort from the Swiss, as we see Voss, it's the case that Voss will be coming home in P3 there, and then we have got Walker in P4. I'm not sure what's happened to Faulkner in all honesty, but Faulkner right now in a car that's limping along, so it's the case that Harikonen is going to come home in P5 when all is said and done. And it is going to be Gianpetro in P6, and it will be, I believe that's Lefloic in P7. Then we have got Lardier who come across the line here in P8. I think Faulkner's run out of fuel because that car has just literally stopped and he's creeping around. So Lardier in P8, and it will be Crewcamp in P9 when all is said and done here. And then it will be Moreira who crosses the line in P10. A brilliant effort there. Crewcamp did get past him. We didn't see that on camera, but both Crewcamp and Moreira bringing home top 10 finishes in the end. And Faulkner is out of fuel by looks of things, as we see there that Yun battling with Bartel right in, and Bartel is going to cross the line ahead of them as they've all stacked up there. Bartel in P11, Yun in P12, and then it is a case that that is it, ladies and gentlemen, as all of our drivers start to make their way back into the pits. A brilliant race, but for our race winner Field, he was able to break away, and you can see how the two CHF Motorsport drivers so pleased, running around side by side together. And we've had confirmation, thank you to those in chat, that it's the case that Faulkner ran short on fuel at the very end. That is a shame for Faulkner, because I think he was going to hold on, but that is sometimes how it goes there. But Field and also Zuga with a brilliant 1-2 finish for CHF Motorsport. Of course, they race as independents in this series, but they'll be pleased with the fact the team have brought the results home. And now in that P3 position in the end, Voss just bringing home that P3 with Faulkner running out of fuel with only 2 corners to go. How despairing is that? And we see they make their way through right now. And then Walker in the end coming home in that P4 position. Just missing out on the podium, Ben Walker, but he'll be very pleased, I'm sure, with what he was able to achieve tonight, as they all make their way back to the pits. And Harikonen as well with that P5 in the end. A brilliant effort from Harikonen to make that recovery, as we see our race leaders pop into the pits now. Give us a couple of minutes, folks, and we'll be back for those post-race podium interviews. Alrighty then, folks. Well, without further ado, we will very shortly be conducting the post-race podium interviews and starting off with our race winner, Yves Field. However, before we do that, I've had it confirmed to me we didn't quite catch it on camera at the very end, but we have had it reported to us. You'll remember that Ethan Faulkner did not bring home the car in the podium position because of the fact he ran out of fuel. In fact, he was struggling to get across the line. Well, in the end, we have heard that Kevin Harikonen pushed Faulkner across the line, got in behind him and essentially pushed him across the line so he could finish the race despite having no fuel. So that's great sportsmanship shown. We were sorry we couldn't bring it to you, unfortunately. We didn't have the cameras on that happening at the time, but we're way to report it. The fact it is brilliant to hear of that sportsmanship, and Faulkner really deserved to make it to the end of the race with a brilliant effort, just not enough fuel to make it to the finish line. However, with that, we now take a talk with our race winner. Let's get him in the commentary box here, in the interview box, and that is Yves Field from Switzerland. Hello, Yves, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Congratulations on another win in the series. How does this win at Misano feel?
Feels amazing. What a race, mate. Yeah. I don't really know what to say. It was just awesome. From start to beginning, everything worked as planned.
So I have to ask, it was a very different start to tonight's race. Qualifying, you put the car on the front row, on pole. How was it to finally now qualifying? Because we've seen Voss dominate qualifying for the opening half of the season, and then you just seem to finally get qualifying right. You said all along you're having difficulty with qualifying. Was today the day where you got it right?
Yeah, I found a solution for it. I was first in the box, so I could go as first on track, and so I wasn't stuck in traffic as the other races. And yeah, it worked out pretty fine. I managed to get some good laps, and yeah, and in the end it was pole. I'm very happy with that.
And then coming away from qualifying to the race itself, so you had alongside you Chris Zuger. Now we know that you're both as part of, I believe it's CHF Motorsport, the racing team. The fact that you had Zuger alongside you on the front row, did that give you a little bit of comfort? Because we saw how Zuger really had a strong start alongside you, and he was trying to go around the outside into turn one.
Yeah, we talked to each other and we said the first few laps we send in, but we don't want to crash into each other because, yeah, it would be horrible for us. But yeah, it worked out pretty fine. And yeah, I'm really happy for him too, for the second position. What a great race.
Oh, definitely. And then with regards to the race, we saw how you gradually started to creep away from the field. Was there a sort of point in your mind where you thought, right, I've got enough of a gap I can back off, or did you just want to keep building the gap up over the course of the race?
Yeah, I tried to make the gap a bit bigger, but I soon realized the tires are pretty, yeah, there's a lot of, yeah, how do you call it, graining and stuff on the tires because it's so hot. And yeah.
Well, it definitely did look difficult with those temperatures out there. Just tell us, when you talk about graining, what does that mean in terms of how you've got to drive the car?
Yeah, I try to not to over and understeer the car, so I try to keep it clean, or as clean as possible. And yeah, but it still didn't work out that well. And yeah, just focusing on consistent lap times helped a lot. Yeah.
And really then with regards to the sort of second half of the race, with the fact you built up such a gap, and I think the gap in the end was just over 10 seconds when you crossed the finish line, was there a point you were thinking about, I can back this off now, or was it still push all the way to the end?
It wasn't really pushing, but it was just keep the car on track and bring it home.
Oh, definitely. And given the fact we've now got the Hungaroring in a week's time, how are you feeling about the Hungarian circuit?
Yeah, it's a quite tricky circuit. A lot of tight corners, and I think the Porsche works fine over there too. Yeah, let's see. I give it the best.
Well, definitely giving it the best, and that's why you're leading the championship at the moment. We look forward to seeing whether you can keep up this form into the Hungaroring next week.
Yeah, we'll see, and have a great evening.
You too, my friend, and we'll catch you next week. We can hear their field very happy with another dominant performance here and really carving out the championship. Championship's not over, of course, we still do have 3 rounds to go, but you can feel the confidence coming off of him at the fact that he was able to control the race. And obviously, Zugrin himself had discussed going into the race that they would battle for the initial couple of laps but avoid taking one off. And we saw that from Zuger with the potential move around the outside. But speaking of Zuger, let's get him in here and let's have a chat with him about the second place finish. Hello Chris, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
So firstly, congratulations on second place. What a battle. How does it feel?
Yeah, it feels amazing. I really can't believe it. It was, I don't know, I just don't know how I managed to stick it in second place. Yeah.
So taking it all the way back to the start, qualifying. You qualified on the front row alongside your CHF Motorsport teammate. Was the goal in qualifying to be right up there, or did this one come as a surprise? We've seen you always up towards the front, but we've never quite seen you go right for that pole position.
I really didn't expect to be second place. I mean, I had a tactic, and I also discussed it with Eve, that he would just drive in front of me and I would try to drive behind him and just stick these laps in. And then yeah, being on second place was really great, and yeah.
And what your teammate was saying to us at the start of the race, and we definitely saw it with that potential move around the outside into turn 1. You wanted to go racing for the win at the start.
Yeah, we discussed it before, and I also said to him that I would try it in the first 2 corners, maybe, but not too aggressive. And then yeah, I tried to stick it around the outside, but then I was really careful because the second corner is really tight. So I just took it back a little bit and tried to just stay in the race and not collide with him.
Now, speaking about staying in the race, we had what was an absolutely fantastic battle between yourself, Faulkner, Voss. We also had Walker in there and Harikonen for a good chunk of it as well. A 5-way battle for P2. Just take us through that opening stint before the pit stop. What was going through your mind?
Yeah, the opening stint was really difficult because I had some problem with the tire pressures in the rear. They were just way too low. So I had no pace at all, and I really just tried to maybe hold them back a bit also for Eve, that he can just pull away. And then yeah, I tried to do a bit of an early stop to get the new tires in and fix the tire pressure issue. And yeah, that's kind of worked out pretty well.
And then coming into the second stint of the race, we saw that at first it was Faulkner leading the pack. Just take us through, because we didn't quite catch the move from yourself on camera versus Faulkner, but what was the idea there? Because you were in the trainer cars battling for P2, and for a while it was nose to tail, and then you just suddenly made the move for P2 and had to lead the pack.
Yeah, it was. I think he did a mistake and he outbraked himself, and then it was a pretty epic fight. We went side to side at the back straight with the 3 right tight corners, and we were side to side through them all. And then I was just on the inside and managed to stick through it. But it was also kind of lucky, and I really tried to just don't collide with him and don't throw away the race. And yeah, it was just really intense.
And then towards the end, when you saw that it was the case that Faulkner was now starting to fight with Voss and also Walker was trying to get into the mix, we saw you really break away quickly. Were you sort of breathing a sigh of relief thinking, right, they're going to battle for P3, I can bring home second place safe and sound?
Yeah, I kind of thought I would be able to break away a bit earlier, but we all fought a bit, and then Faulkner always came back to me a little bit. But then as soon as I got a little distance in, I was quite confident, and also a little bit less under pressure, because I was under pressure the whole race really. I had 1 little second to rest, and it was really tiring. And then yeah, I just on the last 2 laps, I think I just tried to relax and just bring it home. Yeah.
Well, having brought home second place today, we have to ask, what are your thoughts for the Hungaroring next week? Are we expecting another podium from yourself?
I don't know. I feel quite confident on the Hungaroring, especially with the Porsche. I think it's a good car there, so it is possible. But yeah, I really don't know. I think the other guys are really fast as well, like we've seen also today. So I will try my best, but yeah, we'll see.
Well, we look forward to seeing what you're able to achieve at the Hungarian circuit next week. But until then, congratulations once again, and we look forward to what you can do next week.
Thank you very much. Have a nice evening.
You too. We heard there from Chris, very happy with that second place. I think very proud to the fact that he's brought home the 1-2 alongside his teammate Phil there. And the fact you could hear it as well, the exhaustion, the drain in that battle for P2 all the way through the race. And it takes its toll, but also that relief when it was the fact that he started to break away at the end. I think at that point it just turned meant in his favour to say, you know what, you've done this and you're going to come home in second place. Now, as for our third place man, Mathias Voss, I have been informed he won't be able to take part in the interview, unfortunately, as he's absolutely exhausted after racing. But he did want me to say thank you to the drivers for the race in the battle for P2, so to Chris Zuger, to Ben Walker, and also to Faulkner for bringing home what was a brilliant battle, and in the end it was a P3 to him. And we also had Harakkonen in there as well, particularly in the opening stint, and he had a really good time, and it's very hard to keep the intense pace throughout. And he's also said congratulations to the race winner and second place, as well as all of the other drivers. So that's Voss, just his note there, which I wanted to read out on his behalf, but we can expect to see him back on circuit in a week's time at the Hungaroring. But with that, that brings to a close our time at Misano, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for watching. And if you do want to know more about the Next Gen racing community, why not check out our official racing website of nextgenracing.co.uk, or the official Facebook group, that's facebook.com, groups Next Gen Racing. I also want to say a big thank you to our partners, the SimGrid. Check them out, thesimgrid.com, and also Coach Dave Academy, coachdaveacademy.com, for supporting us and making this series possible. Without them, it would not be possible, whether it be the organisation or the stewarding. We're grateful for their involvement all the way through. And now we have to wait a week for round number 6, the Hungaroring. Who's going to come out on top? Will it be the case that we see another chance of a win for Field, or will we see somebody else jump up onto that top step, or see a change in the podium? We've seen a lot of drivers coming through the order. Maybe see either Faulkner or Walker charge on to the podium. We'll have to wait and see. But until then, ladies and gentlemen, remember to stay safe, stay smiling, and stay confident. But most importantly, remember to stay on track. Good night.